One upstairs.
Already thank you.
No, not really. I'll just use my mom voice. You the capital.
Gonna start.
So here's everyone. We're gonna get started.
The problem is,
Official feeling.
I still can't use the runways. Don't, in the winter.
It can't be on the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
He's got his
I
airplane.
think we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Utah.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Meeting been called to order. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
None from staff.
Our first action item is the approval of the meeting minutes. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve the meeting, for both dates.
Do we have to have separate action?
I think we prefer separate.
Okay.
So a motion to approve the January 27th, 2026 CAB meeting minutes.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in approval, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
On a motion to approve the March 26th, 2026 CAB special meeting. Second.
Any further discussion?
I just have one small point of clarification, which is that my last name is
Oh, apologies for not catching.
totally fine. Not offended, just feel like seems like I'm not paying attention if I didn't.
Nope.
Yeah. I did not double check my name. Any other discussion? Please, all those voting in approval signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Chair votes in approval as well. Okay, next we have our board member reports. So I think we'll just start at this end and work our way down. I'll go last if that works for you. Evan?
Sure. Another report. I said, Dave, tremendous amount of just volume, and thank you for forwarding the public comments. Are those comments which are primarily not just one airport, but really a lot of airports on the Front Range? Are they shared with the individual airports, or how do we get that out? Because they come in a lot of different shapes and sizes. And some are things that I'm sure we'll talk about, or either today or another day. But there are others that are just interesting observations that are directed maybe to the wrong audience. How do we? So I guess my question would be: Are we cascading those to the proper audience, and if so, how? We don't necessarily need to address it today, but I'm very thankful for the community that's engaging. I don't want them to feel like they're sending a message into the void. And so, I don't know, maybe just a comment. I know this is for discussion, but a comment we should at the board level talk about how we incorporate those comments that are sent to us, but maybe misdirected to us, and how we get those to the right folks.
And I'm happy to answer that. Typically, Kevin, if they say, please share with the CAB, which the vast majority of those have, that's where we do, unless they specifically ask me to share them with the airport. I don't, unless the airport asks them or asks us to do that. But happy to rethink that. But typically, if a comment is directed, please pass to the CAB or something similar. That's the extent of what we do with that.
Okay. Thank you. Nothing further?
So yesterday I toured the Del Norte Airport, and this board has given several grants to Del Norte and for the Kent Rominger Airport, and they were most grateful, and a good discussion. And I took some of the annual reports from our January meeting, and so as I visit some of these other airports, I can share the information.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I, of course, do not have that much to say as usual, but I do want to let everybody know that my favorite, it's not supposed to be my favorite, but it is. It's not supposed to be. But Centennial is doing its 5K on the runway this third year. And it's going to be even bigger and better. They had, I want to say 1,800 last year and 1,500 the year before. And so looking forward to another great year and lots more sponsorships and lots more runners and cool things.
Can you remind us of the date?
It is June 5th, 6th. It's June 6th, yes. So please come on down.
Be there.
At some point I may run.
You can walk it.
Yeah, I could. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. I'm Trimby, the Colorado Pilots Organization's representative. I'm going to keep my report short because there's a lot in it and it will be emailed to you and the governor. And if you would please put it in the meeting minutes, Tanya, that'd be great. But my message today is that I wore an attitude indicator necklace for the sole purpose of reminding pilots, air traffic controllers, flight school operators, and the students, the clients, to please fly out at VX, not VY, and be a good neighbor for our, especially Rocky Mountain Metro, well, and Erie, and all the airports that we're working with. And the names of the people are remembered. I just want everybody to remember that when you're flying out of these airports, flying out at VX is going to be higher, faster, and the power settings are very important. And to be good neighbors, we have to remember this, and especially controllers, flight school operators, like I said, the students, the clients, the instructors, the managers. Every time you're flying out, you need to remember the names of these people. Mina, Sean, Russell, Greg, Oliver, Mark, Joe, Jeff, Seth, Allison, Virginia, Sue, Brandon, Tim, Christopher, Mina, Cindy, Emily, Sharon, Katie, Chuck, Lori, Mona, Sean, Carly, Sylvia, Cliff, Keaton, James, Shanna, Timothy, Aaron, and Rachel. And their children. Please fly out at VX with the right power setting. That's all I'm gonna say.
I'm gonna keep mine pretty brief as well. Big story again is lots of projects going on out here on the we're still here on the Eastern Plains. So you're gonna find a lot of those when we look at our discretionary grants today and approve them. And so I love seeing that stuff going on. And Burlington is pretty exciting also. Got a couple of grants that are up and a lot of projects we want to get done this year. I'm in the early planning stages of maybe doing some type of a fall fly-in this year if we can get our projects done in time. Because if everything works out like I want it to, we're going to have brand new surface on the runway. We've got new taxiways from last year. We have new entrance road and parking lot. We've got our simulator in there. So we're going to do like an open house fly-in maybe if everything gets done in a timely fashion this year. So that's my quick update.
Well, everybody saved so much time. I think I'll just take about an hour or so. Mine's nice and short too. All I have to say is thanks for the demonstration today of the fire trainer. That was a really good use of us helping out with a grant to purchase that, but it's going to really be of value to all the airports in Colorado, including Denver International Airport. We're going to get to use it for our exercise. So thanks. That's the conclusion of my report.
Holy cow, the pressure's on. I have a couple more things, but I'll try to be as brief too. On a national basis, things that are happening that really do impact us in Colorado. There's a major U.S. aviation safety bill going, moving through Congress. In fact, it'll be voted on next week, and it addresses a myriad of issues, including mandating more collision avoidance technology, pushing ATC system improvements, something we're really talking about locally. Response to the recent mid-air issues, and there's been more than one of those, of course, of concern. And the FAA is working with global regulators to talk about airspace system modernization and fixes over the next 3 years. And there's a real project to do that. For us, one of the things that they're pushing and impacts, really, all aircraft with a GA in particular is faster equipage with ADS-B plus and detect and avoid kind of technology. Same thing for ground-based equipment. And we'll see more and more of that and changes. So, related to safety, the FAA still is faced with a workforce shortage, almost 3,000 controllers short. They're getting creative. They're actually out recruiting gamers to apply. So they're implementing new strategies for further recruitment. That's a big deal. And of course, the trouble with the shortage is more delays and congestions at controlled airports, and then this training pipeline and retirement challenge. The other thing that's happening is, and we talked about before, is the supply chain issues are now become kind of the new norm. And so parts availability, Bill just experienced this with his airplane, how long it takes to get parts. Their maintenance delays and timelines are extended, and aircraft deliveries are impacted. So, that's a big issue. Closer to home, also related to around maintenance, Qatar Aviation opened its new 22,000 square foot maintenance facility over at BJC, which is really focused on Pilatus, PC-24, PC-12 maintenance, and they have expansion plans. One of the things that's happening is the Front Range is really becoming a regional maintenance hub for these type of aircraft, for owner-flown turbine aircraft and for fractional business jet. So we're seeing more and more of that. Also on the maintenance event here, there's a new maintenance training program that was launched at Pueblo Community College. That was the result of a $471,000 grant given by the Colorado Economic Development Commission to support that program. So that joins, when you really look around Colorado, we have Ames Community College, we have Spartan College of Aeronautics and Technology, and Colorado Northwestern are all three focused schools now with Pueblo. And the industry needs around 12,000 new A&P technicians to replace retirement. So Colorado is becoming also, I think, a hub for more and more a leader in helping educate the next technicians and maintenance folks that the industry needs. I'll stop.
Okay, thank you. I will make mine fairly brief. I had a chance to attend the annual Aviation Noise Emissions Symposium. I was very happy to see a large contingent from Centennial Airport there, so that was very cool. Lots of stuff, happening on all of these fronts. I will definitely let Chris, hopefully in one of our next meetings, update about where Swift Fuels is standing on some of their unleaded stuff. Kurt Castagna from Eagle gave an update about where they're at with that transition. One of they closed the draft, the comment period on the FAA's draft transition plan, which I know that the board commented on and some other groups had a comment on. So there was some sort of talk about what the next steps are with that. Interestingly, Eagle had not made the public comments public, but there was some they're going to try to do that so that everybody might be able to access what those comments are. So hopefully looking forward to seeing some of those made more public. One thing that came up a lot, which I'm not going to get into in depth here, but I do think should be on everybody's radar because that same day of the symposium, the FAA announced a couple of test states and sites for the advanced air mobility testing. I realize that may not hit the state of Colorado right now, but given the complexities of how that's going to work with zoning, planning, airspace, airports, electric infrastructure, all of those things, if it's not on everybody's radar, it should be. There's a lot of publications and things, but there's some of the information from the symposium was recorded and made public, so I'm happy to share that with anybody who is interested. There's also a brief event at DU's law school last week about some of the research that's coming out about the health impacts of noise, and it's beyond, it's more than lead. There's a lot of detrimental health impacts from noise, just so everybody can understand it from a holistic perspective. I mean, yes, people complain about it, but there are actual detrimental health effects that are being widely studied. So it is kind of interesting just to see where that comes from a larger basis. And the other thing is, there's a TV show on Hulu called Paradise. If nobody has watched it, you should. One of the state's airports made a guest appearance in the last 5 minutes of the season finale this year. And I think it'll be much to everybody's delight and surprise. I'm not going to ruin it for you. So, yeah, you're going to have to watch the whole show and it'll make sense, but I don't think it will be wasted on this audience. That is it for me. Okay.
Dave, do we have an update? Sorry to put you on the spot, but the seat that is empty at our board meeting today is the CDPHE representative. We do not have an update yet on that.
Not, and I have escalated that to Director Liu's office because CDPHE has been non-responsive to my multiple requests for appointee.
Okay. I have a short report as well as we have a full agenda. And hopefully is Diane online, Sean, to give a short report?
She is.
Great. So I'll let Diane talk about the Aspen Airport. The theme right now in Western Colorado is construction. You know, this time of year, everyone's ramping up. At the Grand Junction Airport, we are no different. We continue to work on our runway project, and we just closed bids on the paving for that full runway replacement. And expect that runway to open in October of 2028. So we're really excited about that. Air service wise, the Western Slope airports have another record breaking summer when it comes to the quantity of air service. Leading growth is really, Eagle and Durango. Grand Junction's growing as well. But overall, the airlines continue to invest in additional air service outside of ski season in Western Colorado. So that is my report. So with that, we will move on to, let's see, the airport updates. I think we have two. We have Rocky Mountain Metro and we have Aspen. So whichever order you would like to go in, Sean, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I guess we just have a video that we produced here that highlights the availability of UL 94 at BJC. We took that last month. And it's just a short video that recaps what happened that day and what's to come. So I'll go ahead and cue that up. A second. Here we go.
A major milestone has arrived for Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport in Broomfield, Colorado. The airport has officially launched the availability of UL 94 unleaded aviation gasoline and has become the second airport in Colorado to offer this cleaner alternative fuel.
Today is a really exciting milestone for us, not only for the airport, for Jefferson County, as we start our transition to unleaded fuel here at the airport.
This FAA-approved fuel contains zero lead and is compatible with about 2/3 of the piston engine aircraft currently operating at the airport. This transition is a key step towards reducing lead emissions while also maintaining the safety and reliability that pilots depend on.
It's FAA approved, contains no lead. It's compatible with over 130,000 aircraft of the general fleet of aviation operating today when it comes to piston aircraft.
Now, this transition to unleaded aviation fuel reflects that balanced approach to protecting public health while maintaining aviation safety, workforce development, and the economic vitality that this airport supports.
Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport is among the early leaders in Colorado, moving ahead of the FAA's national 2030 goal to eliminate leaded aviation gasoline. In May of 2023, Centennial Airport became the first airport in Colorado to begin the transition to unleaded fuel.
Centennial Airport here in Colorado was the first airport a couple of years ago to start offering the 94 octane unleaded fuel. Rocky Mountain Metro is now the second, and I think we're really going to see a snowball of other airports start to offer this fuel, especially as the industry gets really close later this year to having a 100 octane higher capability fuel that will work in far more airplanes than the unleaded 94 does today.
This most recent progress is made possible by a strong partnership between the Federal Aviation Administration, the Colorado Division of Aeronautics, and Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport.
You know, this has really been kind of a three-way partnership between the airport, our partners at the Federal Aviation Administration, and our division, all of which had funding in the project to make this happen today.
So it has been a really cross-jurisdictional collaborative effort to get to the point where we are today.
The unleaded fuel at Rocky Mountain Metro is offered through Shelter Aviation, which manages the purchasing and delivery of Swift UL-94. To support a seamless transition, Rocky Mountain Metro and Centennial Airport have implemented a fuel subsidy.
The state also has within House Bill 24-1235 the ability to use state funds to help kind of subsidize and drive the adoption of unleaded fuel. So we're getting about $300,000 a year from CDOT to pay for that difference in the cost of fuel.
So our division had a key role in helping to implement the provisions of House Bill 1235, which really created a lot of incentives here in Colorado for the industry to make this transition. It allowed our division to help fund infrastructure grants, which we do have funding into this project here at Rocky Mountain Metro, as well as transitional subsidy grants to help buy down the currently higher price of unleaded fuel to be more on par with leaded fuel as another incentive to get pilots that can make the transition to do so sooner rather than later.
For more information about Colorado's transition to unleaded aviation fuels, visit the Colorado Division of Aeronautics website at colorado-aeronautics.org. There you can explore the latest airport fuel transition plans along with other important updates and resources related to unleaded aviation fuel.
Great video by Sean. Really appreciate that. We'll continue to promote other airports as they start to offer unleaded fuel and do similar outreach and engagement to make sure folks know what's happening around the state. So kudos to Eric and the team over there for making that happen this year. And thanks to all of you for supporting the subsidy grant that y'all approved earlier this year.
All right, next is Diane still on.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. So I have a small echo, so I apologize. Hopefully everyone can help. Angela, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Diane.
Okay, perfect. So thank you for providing some time to give Aspen an update to you all. In addition to our spring closure for April 23rd through May 21st, we are planning a 9-month closure that Angela mentioned, scheduled for next April through November 2027, to shift the runway 80 feet to the west. In addition to doing that, we will be planning on laying some foundation work for the terminal, as well as Atlantic Aviation, our FBO, redoing their FBO at the same time. So in addition to that, we will be working with our Western Slope airports to make sure that our traveling public have transportation covered during that closure, as well as welcoming them back when we open in November. I'm happy to take any questions from people.
Diane, do you want to just spend 1 minute explaining why the runway needs to shift? I don't think this group knows.
Oh, I would be more than happy to. We have had spring closures for the last 3 or 4 years in order to repair the runway, which is failing. And in order to do that and receive federal funding, we are required to come into compliance with Airport Design Group 3 aircraft, which means shifting our runway 80 feet to the west. So 80 feet away from the taxiway that we have, in addition to widening the runway from 100 feet to 150 feet wide.
Do you have an idea of what the economic impact is during the closure to the community and to the airport?
I don't have an exact figure for you, but I can tell you our community is extremely concerned about that, which is why we have stood up community groups to discuss how we can keep our passengers still here in Aspen and transportation needs from Grand Junction, Eagle, Rifle for GA.
I imagine the planning has been pretty extensive and challenging.
It has, and I actually so thankful to Angela. She's been very helpful with trying to understand our airport project, as well as coming out here to see boots on the ground, what's going on at the airport, and see our plans. So I would like to get the Western Slope airports together as well, for a group to really understand how we can best help our passengers and update them at the same time.
And just at a high level, Diane, you go over kind of how this project will be funded. I think, for this group, they might be less familiar with this project, but it's been planned for a very, very long time. So you want to just discuss at a high level of funding?
It has, and I will thank the CAB and Colorado Department of Transportation for their portion of this, because the runway will be funded with grants. The whole project itself is estimated right now at $575 million, but that does include the terminal. The terminal portion will be funded by bonds, CFCs, as well as PFCs that the airport's collected, but the runway portion of this, approximately $200 million, will be funded through grants.
We appreciate very much your briefing to the board, and look forward to additional briefings in the future too, as you make progress.
Thank you, everyone. And we'd be happy to come back with that once we have our CMAR announced.
Great. Are there any other questions?
Good luck.
Yeah.
It's the biggest project we haven't talked about at all on this board, so I thought we should spend 5 minutes. So.
Well, and I would say, Angela, from staff's perspective, as you all get closer and, being a multi-airport problem to solve, if there's anything the division can do to help spread that message or share what you're up to, please lean on us to help you with that.
Thank you.
I very much appreciate that. And I think we will plan on doing that, just because this is going to have to be a multi-airport effort to make sure everyone's accommodated.
Hey, and as somebody that spent 7 years of his previous life at that airport, it's so cool to see him finally doing this project, because we were talking about it 20 years ago when I started working there. So way to go, Diane, to finally make this happen.
I was going to say, if it wasn't for all of you, it wouldn't be. So thank you for all of your efforts as well.
Thanks, Diane.
Thank you.
Do we have any other airport updates?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
We'll move on to public comment then. Sean, can I just turn it over to you to go over the individual ones?
We have 2 individuals signed up for public comment currently. We have Brad Walker and Kate first. And I'll let you call in whoever you want first there.
Okay, I think Kate was signed on first, so we'll go Kate first and then Brad.
Kate, you're on.
Oh, actually, before they get started too, I want to remind those commentators that we have a 3-minute comment period per person, just to keep the meeting on track. That will be enforced by, well, our timer's name is Daniel. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you for letting me participate in your meeting. I'm a real estate agent and I work at the Westcliff Airport in Custer County, or I work with the airport because I have sold about 7 properties down there. So it's a small airport, but it's a lot of fun. If you have any questions about it, then please feel free to reach out, because I've been working with the airport for about 5 years now. So I'm pretty knowledgeable of everything that goes on down there, so just let me know.
Thank you. Next up, Brad Walker, you'll have 3 minutes as well.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon. Brad Walker, Superior, Colorado. I'm also a pilot who flies out of Rocky Mountain Metro. I'm down here. We can't be with you in person today because I'm down here in the Springs at the Space Symposium. And, it's very interesting to me as I talk to various CEOs and executives down here about business in Colorado. And I have to explain to them how Bree Lehman and Kevin Ryan are using the easements exception to the detriment of various airports here in Colorado. In particular, for some reason, they've decided that Rocky Mountain Metro is their special focus, and they're holding up grants based upon the fact that supposedly Rocky Mountain Metro is not following navigation easements. That's a legal question and really should be addressed in a court of law by attorneys. It's not the purview of this board, and in reading the bylaws, I don't see where this board has any authority to enforce grant agreements like the aviation easement. Clearly, I could be wrong, and I'm correct me, but that's the way I see it. The point is focused on Rocky Mountain Metro impacts is not the purpose of this board. This board is to represent all the airports in the state of Colorado and not to use this platform as a means to exact revenge on the aviation community and the pilots at Rocky Mountain Metro. Obviously, some of the letters you've been getting are very emotional, and that is because they are out there working to the detriment of the aviation industry in Colorado and being focused on Rocky Mountain Metro. So as I've said previously, stay focused and follow the rules and everything will be fine. But when you deviate from that, then things can and probably will get sideways. Thanks to everyone. Kudos to Rocky Mountain Metro for implementing unleaded 94. The staff at CDOT for the professional video. It's great. And all the other positive work that this board and CDOT does. You folks have a good day and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That's it for public comment on Zoom land.
No one signed up for public comment.
All right, on that note, we'll move on to the director's report.
Great, thanks, Madam Chair. Just a couple of things to cover with you. Sean goes to the next slide. I think go back to this map and you'll recall that we have historically had 3 aviation planners on our team, Kip, Caitlin, and Scott. And this is the way their regions were divided up statewide, and they've been that way for long before I got here to the division. That was the dividing line. So as you all know, back in January, we added some additional capacity to our team with Angelica as our new planner and Kip's promotion to planning manager. So with that, we will be rolling out in June, and this will be effective July 1, but we wanted to give you a sneak preview. We're going to sort of reorient our planning regions to what you see over on that wall and this slide here. So what we are going to do is we're going to reorient the state north-south. And one of the big not challenges, but the conversations we had there was that the western region previously under Scott's purview, he had almost all the commercial service airports in the state, and those are a different level of challenge and funding. So with this new orientation, this direction, it actually sort of splits up the commercial service airports a little bit more equitably among the planners. And then Kip's new call sign is Pac-Man, his region. And that is very strategic. When House Bill 1235 was implemented, his region, which had been the Northeast region, did include the 5 airports that are subject to those additional provisions. So we have really broken him out to focus on specifically the Front Range airports. Denver International is the commercial service airport there, along with those other 5 airports. So we'll be sharing this at CAOA here in June with the rest of the airports, and then that will officially be effective July 1. But we wanted to give you a little bit of a sneak peek of what that looks like. Now, the one challenge that kind of means for all of you as board members is you're oriented east and west, is the way statute assigns your positions. That will still continue. We can't change that. So that may mean for us that you'll see different people on our team interacting with you on airports in your region, but you all have the same batch of west-east regions that you do. We will actually be drawing out what east-west looks like. It's not specifically called out in statute, and every governor has kind of determined that a little differently. It's not the Continental Divide. It's typically been the Front Range because the Continental Divide is a weird one that doesn't go straight. So we're going to clarify that as well. But I just want to give you a little sneak peek on the new assignments here. So you can see there, Scott will be up north. Angelica will be taking over the airports in the south. Kip, again, the Front Range corridor airports. And then again, with our reorganization, Caitlin is now our statewide initiatives and procurement specialist. So she's not engaged going forward in a lot of airport planning, but she knows her stuff. So we're going to lean on her a lot as we make this transition. So happy to answer any questions about that. But again, July 1st will be the official date for this.
Good luck, Angelica. Congrats.
Cool. Just a couple other things I'll chat about. One of the things that we're really focused on, always have been, aviation safety and aviation weather. We're facing a circumstance here where most of our mountain AWAS units are approaching 20 to 25 years old. They're starting to reach their end of the life. We've cobbled them together, replaced them piece by piece. But one of the things we're trying to find is there an alternative for our mountain weather stations that does not entail spending over 7 figures on an AWAS 3, which is what they all are today, because that's the only tool that we have to get certified weather into the aviation system for the FAA. There's a lot of alternatives being developed that would be less expensive, that would still provide pilots with some of the advisory information they need at places like Berthoud Pass and Wilkerson and some of those. So we have a very cool collaboration that we're working on with some of our other peers on the highway side at CDOT, who they manage the cameras that you all use when you see CoTrip and some of the roadway weather systems that our internal folks use for plowing and all of that. We're actually going to demo a new system that's called an MWAS, and it stands for Montes Weather Observing System. And Montes is the name of the company that was founded by the folks that stood up the Alaska Weather Camera Program, who have now retired from FAA and are developing this new product. We're going to collaborate with our peers at CDOT to try 3 of these out on a trial basis. CDOT's going to help us fund part of it from their budget. We're going to fund part of it with our existing AWAS budget. We're going to try 3 of these out, one at Berthoud Pass, where we have an existing AWAS. We can sort of validate how does it perform relative to an AWAS 3. We're going to put one out near Last Chance on Highway 36, where we've had a lot of requests from helicopter EMS operators for weather reporting. There's no airports out there. And so they've asked for some information. So we're going to put one out there alongside the highway, and again, in partnership with CDOT. And then several years ago, we did a study about where weather-related aircraft accidents happen in Colorado. And one of the biggest locations where we do not have an AWAS right now is on Cameron Pass between Fort Collins and Steamboat Springs on Highway 14. We're going to put one up there. These are cool. They're completely self-contained. They're solar powered. They use Starlink for communications. They don't need a lot of infrastructure. And we're going to put them on places where CDOT already owns the property. So it's going to be easy for us to not have to navigate leases. So we'll keep you posted on that. We're excited about it. It has some great potential. The people developing it have the technical background that they've developed from decades of work in Alaska doing weather up there. So we're excited about it. We're not doing any big procurement. They're going to partner with us to do a trial. We'll keep you posted, but really exciting. And we're really happy that we get to collaborate with our other peers within CDOT, because this will help them as well with the highway side and some of the information that they get for doing weather forecasting. The person we're actually working with is one of CDOT's weather forecasters. I bet you didn't know CDOT has their own weather forecasting team, and they're pretty good at it. So we're excited with that. Todd's leading that up. He's doing a great job. So pretty exciting, a cool thing. We'll keep you posted. We might be able to bring a demo unit to CAOA if we can get them to maybe give us one to show. They're not very big. They're super small.
What would be the cost, or what's the rough cost comparison, of course, post-pilot?
Still developmental, Kevin. That's a great question. We're looking at it. The 3 that we are going to acquire for demo are $71,000.
Total or each?
total.
So I remember, and the old ones were a lot more.
AWAS units today are over $1 million. So we're excited about this. So it's kind of cool.
Is this brand new technology or is it deployed anyplace else?
It's been used in Alaska for quite some time. They're using it on ports and airports. And so it's been proven up there and we're ready to try it down here. It's got cool functionality with cameras. It's got ADS-B receivers where you can track airplanes that are coming and going in the vicinity if there's an accident. There's all kinds of cool stuff you can add to it. So it's really a cool new product. They're working on FAA certification so that they can deploy these more widely and get some of the information out there. But we're going to try it out, see how it works. For not a lot of money. And again, I think it's a cool opportunity that may save us millions of dollars going forward when it comes time to replace our AWAS units without minimizing the information pilots can get.
And the other cool thing about them, so we've implemented the weather camera program here multiple years ago. So this is kind of that next step forward as well. So each of those sites previously had 4 separate cameras facing different directions. This actually integrates 4 cameras into a full 360-degree view that you can pan. You can do really everything through the app. So there's a lot of cool pieces to it. Every time we meet with them, they are just excited to talk about it even more. So it is a cool partnership with CDOT as well. Looking forward to it.
And then the last thing we're working on, we've always been on the lookout for new statewide initiatives that we can do to help airports, be sustainable and safe and efficient. One of the ones we've heard from some of our airports is some coordination on rubber removal. Steve knows this better than anybody. When planes land, they leave rubber on. It minimizes friction, obliterates markings, makes it kind of hard. It didn't happen in a lot of small airports, but at the big airports it does. And so taking care of that rubber and making sure it gets removed on time is a key part of managing an airport. So we're not investing any funding in this program yet, but we're working with airports like Eagle and Grand Junction and Denver and some others to try to facilitate a vendor that would be able to go to each of those, coordinate and get a lower price for some of those. So we'll keep you posted on that. But another new statewide initiative that actually came out of CAOA is a recommendation of you guys ought to think about maybe trying to do this for all of us. So again, kudos to Todd for making that happen. That'll probably be rolled out.
I hope to meet with the airports next week, actually, to kind of start rolling it out for this summer, this fall time period. So that's the hope. We'll see how it works.
Yeah. Cool. And that's it for the director's report, unless there's any questions, Madam Chair.
None for me. Does anyone else have any questions? I think we'll move on to the financial update then. Turn it over to Bryce.
Okay. Here, we'll just go through the financial dashboard.
Yeah, I'll just get you up there.
Okay.
When we look at revenue for March's revenue came in at 5.7 million, which was 175% of the forecast of 3.3 million. But as you know from the previous month's update, DOR changed the filing process. That's why we saw the crash in February for revenue and then the huge uptick in March. Basically, they gave an extra 2-week window for vendors to file their tax payments. So overall, looking at it from a combined February-March forecast, we had 6.8 million in revenue. We forecast 6.8 million in revenue. Actuals came in at 7.3 for the combined months. So it's 7% higher than expected. Not surprising given the turmoil we know that's happening globally right now. For April's numbers, we're forecasting 3.9 million in revenue, but there's a strong likelihood that next month's report shows revenue higher than that as we are fully into oil prices at 90 plus for an extended period now. So the revenue is going to fluctuate a little bit as we go through the next few months here. For our purposes, it's good news as far as what's likely to be coming out of that.
Bryce, will you just remind us the fuel taxes, what they're based on the price of fuel, right? What each fuel tax is.
Right. So the fuel tax is 2.9% of the tax of the fuel being sold. So volume, price, all factors into that. So as we talk about here with volume going out of Denver, continuing to rise and set records, you try to combine that with the fuel prices and our revenue is certainly trending upwards. For that reason, year to date revenue is 36.5 million. This is the meaning I would usually update the revenue forecast, but for the first time since I've been here, we're going to go the entire year without adjusting our regional budget of 150 million. We're still trending to be close to that, and with what I expect to happen here as far as revenue the last 3 months, we're probably going to come in pretty much right in that range. So No overall change to revenue. I will note as well, as we've talked about with some previous missed filings at Denver, we are starting to see a few of those trickle through. Nothing huge volume yet, but there's been a little bit of action on those last couple months. So overall, revenue is doing what we expect it to, and we're actually now expecting it to outpace what it has done. And as soon as it starts to do that, we'll be showing that in future forecasts. But yeah, with price of oil on the one slide on here, when we put it together, it was 115 a barrel. Today it's 91. Who knows what it'll be at tomorrow? So that kind of fluctuates every day. And most airports or airlines in the US don't have a lot of hedging built into their pricing. They're buying oil, jet fuel as needed for the most part. So one thing in Europe is they have a lot of hedging. We don't in America. Recent years, a lot of airlines have kind of stopped that practice. So this is the time where they regret that, basically, that they're going to be paying for a lot more fuel. And I'm sure you all have seen the reports about how much some of the airlines have lost the last couple of months just because of increased fuel cost. So yes, we continue to track that very closely as we talk about future revenues and what's been coming in.
Thank you.
It sure does that. All right, cash balance. We finished March at 21 million, which was a 3.2 million increase from the 17.8 in February. Again, this is just kind of a reactionary of previous month had very little tax disbursements going out because of the filing change. So our revenue showed up again at a higher pace. This month, we'll see that drop down. Because of that, we've got 5.7 million in revenue to pay tax disbursements against. So we will see a little higher expenditure this month and likely see a decrease in cash balance to around the 19.5 million range to close out this month. Contingency analysis slide. This is the one where I note that current levels are near $115 a barrel, and this was sent out a week ago. So again, we're 91 today, just showing kind of the daily fluctuation as we go through that. But again, the 2026 CDAG program that you guys had set back in August at the workshop, 16 million is still on track. And actually, I'm going to talk about that next on my next slides, next section, I should say. But overall, we have a very healthy cash balance. Even as we get farther out and start slipping into kind of our worst case model, you can see we're a ways off of being any kind of cash crunch should something like that happen. Again, now we're in the opposite right now. We've got fuel at Denver, instead of being down around the $35 million or $35 million a month, we're closer to $51 million a month in average fuel flow at Denver in the last 12 months. Certainly healthy financially. The contingency analysis is by design, trying to show kind of a doomsday scenario a little farther out. But you can see here that even in that case, we're looking really good from a cash and finance perspective. Next slide shows our admin expenses. Mandated cap for the year is 2.2 million. Cabinet approved a budget of 900,000 back in January 2024. Year-to-date spends about 580,000, forecasted to be 835. So well below budgeted amount, well below state capped accounts. That would put us about 1.8% of FY25. So we are continuing to operate lean and mean as far as the admin costs to the division go. And then finally, looking at Denver fuel flowage. Fuel flowage at Denver, which was an all-time record of 58.8 million gallons. That was an increase of 31% from February's 42.4 million, and up 12% from March of 2025, 49.7. That 58.8 is, like I said, the highest on record. Previous high was 58.2 in July of 2025. April flowage is showing 53 million gallons for a forecast. That'd be a 5% decrease from March, but a 15% increase year over year. And as you kind of look at the boxes there, that's roughly what we'd be looking at from a decrease typically from March to April. So no reason not to think that it's going to end up there, other than as we've talking about fuel prices and stuff, if airlines start cutting it back. But largely, Steve can correct me if he's heard otherwise, airlines have not planned to cut back. I know United's cut some flights, but still very few as they try to position themselves on the other side. But by and large, the communication coming out of the airline industries, they're just going to weather this storm and plug ahead until the geopolitical climate stabilizes. So not anticipating a drop really in fuel flow. See oil prices is a day-to-day, hour-to-hour thing. So overall, message kind of remains the same. We are in good financial shape and looking at a potential significant increase in revenues, ergo cash balance over the next few months. As long as oil stays up in this range or higher, we'll see the effect of that really kind of starting probably with next month's revenue for what just happened here in March's revenue, because most of the month was at these high prices. And as we get further into the spring and summer, if oil continues this rate, we're going to see that climbing pretty precipitously. Happy to answer any questions from the board on any of those slides.
Might need a new chart by July. Another line up there.
Gigi?
Thank you, guys. Have we taken any hits with the legislature right now and the shortfall within the state?
We have not, and Dave, feel free to jump in on me here anytime, but because we are constantly appropriated, our fund cannot be touched by general fund by the state. It is by statute purely designed for aviation use. So unlike other aviation departments throughout the country, other departments throughout this state, our funds are our funds, and there really is no mechanism for the state to try to capture it.
So they can't come back and sweep some of the cash?
They cannot.
Balance. Okay.
Yeah, we're in a very fortunate standpoint that the division's statute, as far as financially, was set up really well. We can focus on what we're focusing on. We can build a long-term plan out knowing that our funds are securely the divisions for use for aviation in Colorado.
That's great. So do the funds still go through the Department of Revenue?
Yes. So the taxes that are collected, I'll just use Denver for an easy example. All the activities that happen there in March, they have until the 20th of April to get those payments into Department of Revenue. And then Department of Revenue does whatever they do, runs whatever metrics they run. And then they send us the revenue and the reports with all that. And that's where we start going through it. I'm looking vendor by vendor at Denver to make sure everybody's filing. And we did have one last month that actually is 2 months behind on filing. It's not a significant enough amount to report on, but I do track that on a vendor by vendor basis so that when, well, geez, we're missing $1 million of revenue. Well, it's because XYZ didn't file. We know why we haven't answered. And then we push that money back out to the airports. So, but I'm talking about our cash balance rising last month because we had 5.7 million in revenue coming in, but the previous month revenue was so much lower. So that means we're only dispersing taxes on 1.8 million in revenue. So roughly 1.2 went out instead of 2.4. So that kind of gives us an idea and knowledge of what our cash balance should do on a monthly basis. Now, grant drawdowns can affect that, but purely from a disbursement standpoint. So yeah, as it comes to DOR, it comes to us, and then we process everything.
So then do we have the capability of investing?
And I'll defer that to Bryce. I would add to him, he's right. And Gigi, I know as a former state legislator, we actually have a higher level of protection for our funds. Our funds are actually constitutionally protected under Article 10, along with motor vehicle fuel taxes that have to be used for aviation or highway purposes. So the legislature can't just go in and change that on a whim. So kudos to Governor Romer and Senator Ents for figuring that out at some point in the previous part. I will let Bryce answer that last question about investments and how we do that with the state.
Sure. So cut me off anytime you want to. We are limited with what we can do investment-wise within the states. We do have the funds in the account that do accumulate interest every month. Last fiscal year, we actually had more in interest than we had in admin costs because of our cash balance where it is. We have also, say 4 or 5 years ago, when our cash balance did get excessively high, and I will say we don't want to hold a high cash balance. We have $20-ish million in the bank right now. I looked before you came on it. We have $25,000 or $25 million worth of grants right now on the street. So the funds are committed. It's not like we're just sitting on a stock of cash to collect interest. They are accounted for. That being said, in the past, the financial issues that the division ran into 10 years ago, where they didn't have the cash on hand to cover those, we took a pragmatic approach here, said 4 or 5 years ago, where our cash balance was rising coming out of COVID. We didn't have a lot of backup right now. Our grant program is the highest it's ever been. It has been for years. So we're getting to the needs there. We had transferred up to actually $9.5 million out of the 160 account, which is our operating account, to the SIB account, which then is used by airports throughout the state. It gets interest on that, but that allows, I don't want to say excess money because that's not accurate, but just some of the funds that the division has and can responsibly manage to be used by airports to complete other projects that don't need grant money, or they're not high enough on the priority list for the FAA for some of our projects. So we invest in aviation through that way. And then any interest on those that comes in stays in the SIB account. So it keeps accumulating and growing, giving us more funds to do that. So we have as pragmatic a layered approach as we can within the confines of state government for investing that we have.
Thank you.
Yep.
Nobody's buying Powerball tickets with the petty cat.
No, I just wondered if we had any money, like with Column Trust. That's an entity that the legislature allows local governments to be able to invest in.
Yeah, we've, like I said, with all of our cash currently committed, it's harder to pull it out to kind of change that. And that's where investing in the SIB was the best approach to deem them. Because of the volume there, with the SIB payments coming back, what that essentially has done is backstopped herself in case something, a COVID type situation hits, where if that hits tomorrow, we don't have to go to these airports we've been talking to for our grant program this year and say, hey, we need to pull this back. Do it. We're good. We've got the financial backing. If this is extended, we can roll the funds back from SIB and into the account. So that's why on the contingency side, I show a couple of different lines on there with the SIB account. That's what that is, because that shows even more rosy pictures. So we've essentially funded our own fiscal backstop in case of something that can't be foreseen and should never be budgeted for. Yep.
To Judy's point, that the Colorado Trust accounts, though, to the extent we can hold funds there, you can pull those out with one day. And
any other questions? All right. The next one here is you're still stuck with me. As we talked about for the administration budget for fiscal year 27, I am looking for a motion to approve a budget increase of $200,000 to the administration cost center. You're probably thinking, hey, we just approved this at the last meeting we were together in January. And that is correct. We did approve a total of $900,000 for the division's administration budget. Literally 2 hours after that board meeting, I got notified by CDOT's headquarters that they are changing the process of how indirects work. Essentially what we are paying headquarters for HR, accounting, budgeting, procurement, as the OFB team there has been cleaning up and putting some process behind that. Long story short, that is increasing our indirect costs with CDOT headquarters by $200,000 a year. I will say the team behind us there has been thoughtful and meticulous to how they're doing it, which is it's not a good news for us because it's costing more, but as far as the overall organization, it was a well overdue process, and I think they've done a good job doing it. So I did not kick back very hard, not that it would have done much good, but they are putting some framework on that. So I am looking for an increase to the budget of $200,000. Again, that is purely the change in how they're calculating indirects. That would put us at roughly 2.2% of the admin budget based on previous year fiscal revenue. Now, both of those are forecast right now, so that could change a little bit, but well below the 5% cap. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I am asking the board to take action to approve an additional $200,000 in supplemental funding for the admin account through FY27, at the total to 1.1 million.
Just give us the next. What was the allocation change for spreading out the indirects? Because any way I look at it, it's based on total budget, total employees, total square footage, total anything, we're low. It's a couple 100,000, well below the 5%. It's not objective. I will have no objection. I just want to understand, is this them trying to get their pound of flesh because they can't get it because of the legislature?
No,
Forgive me for.
no, that's a great question. They actually, all the things you just listed there, square footage, full-time, budget, they did, different models of each of what they would look like in impacts, and then sourced it out with the different regions, business units and stuff like that. So I was involved, as far as reviewing that. I think they did end up using, the full-time employee allocation as the best barometer, which I would concur with, that actually was the most beneficial for the division. So that was the methodology they used. Why it changed so much, I would say it's been a long time coming. The current FMB team has been there for a little bit now and are making impactful changes like this that are honestly long overdue. So that was the methodology they used, and it does make more sense. Our previous indirect budget was roughly 60 to 70,000 a year, and you start factoring in again HR, procurement, accounting, IT, the director's office, all the costs and stuff that are associated with that. We were getting a sweetheart deal. So this is just putting more rails on that. They're getting feedback still and plan on tweaking bits and pieces to move forward, but that's why and how it was done. It's something that was certainly overdue there. Yep.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Further discussion? I actually have a question myself. So Brace, I want to confirm, this is a $200,000 increase. So now it's a $260,000 or $270,000 cost.
Yeah, so the total ends up purely for indirects is, I want to say 263. But it's $200,000 more than it previously had been.
And they're using a per FTE methodology. And how many FTEs does the division have?
When they did this process, 9, now we're at 10.
Still seems really high. 26,000 or 30,000 an FTE does seem high. I have the exact same thought as you guys when it comes to, different ways to get your money. That seems very
high. Based on the different methods they use, this was the most beneficial to our division. That's not why they did it, but as they try to capture all of the headquarter costs and assign them to revenue generating divisions, that is their intent around this.
And this does not include payroll or anything like that, right? It's just for the headquarters.
Just for the headquarters stuff. The para costs for staff and things like that are rolled into both the admin budget costs that are already in the program.
Further discussion? All in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Chair votes in approval as well.
Thank you. Next one here, 8.3 is the CDAG budget supplemental request for FY26. So that is the current fiscal year. We're looking for approval to budget an additional $425,000 in funding for the CDAG program at FY26. That would bring the total allocated to $16,425,000. As you know, the CAB approved $60 million back in August at the CAB meeting. We have already approved a little over $9 million in state and local grants, and Todd's going to talk about the federal match grants and a few other state and local ones here pretty much right when I'm done. But as we've wrapped up the federal match and overmatch around the CDAG program, as well as some specific funding around unleaded gas transitions, the current projects on the team's radar is a little bit above that 16 million range. Given the CAB's previous direction to try to ensure we get that original amount set and use it all and don't leave a cushion. I'm looking right at Mark there. He's nodding because that was a topic of discussion a few years ago at a CAB workshop, as well as our continued strong financial position where we have the ability to absorb this without any consternation. We're recommending approval of an additional $425,000 to CDAG funding in FY26. And that just allows us to contract the current plan without needing to push any of the projects discussed into future years. Todd or myself are happy to answer any questions, but like I said, we're looking for an approval for showing $425,000 to the grant program.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Sorry, I have another question.
Sure.
So with the financial picture looking brighter based on oil prices, can you just talk a little bit about how the division approaches those unexpected surpluses and how you think about it?
Typically speaking, it's not something we're going to take action on or look to do right away. We're going to just use that within the framework of our normal August, we bring a number to you. The reason this is just a little bit different is they've had their plan and some of the projects that have been tied together. Realistically, we know this full value won't get contracted as things fall apart, things change, things get pushed. But this just allows us to get as close as we can to really filling up that $16 million number. Because you end up going over because everything falls together perfectly. Great. We would have that, but we typically will not take action like, hey guys, we got an extra $5 million that came in from previous misfilings. Next month, let's vote on doing this. Typically, we wouldn't do that. It would fall within the normal range of here's a typical up to CDAG budget in August when we come to you from 16 to 19 or something, or however that looks like. So we don't reactionary as far as it comes to any surplus revenue coming in, just like we don't when revenue's lighter than forecast. We're not pulling back things or anything like that. But it is part of the realism of the situation here that, the extra $425,000 we're asking for here hopefully is going out the door really quick. It's not adding any strain to our current budget based on where we're at and where we're expecting to be.
And I will say we have a lot of those internal conversations. Bryce is used to me coming into his office as he tells me where a barrel of oil is. And I'm like, so did that change anything? So we have a lot of those internal conversations throughout the year. And again, I usually know the answer is, hey, we'll have a conversation in August. And then I bug him every month as we get closer to August on what that number looks like. But I know where you're coming from on that. We watch it very closely.
I guess as he doesn't come in your office when oil prices are low.
I do not. Just to make sure he's not going to take anything from me.
Any further discussion? All in approval, please signal by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Passes and chair votes in approval as well. You have two more, right, Bryce?
I think I'm done. That's what we kept here.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It'll be me.
Yep. So 8.4 is where we were.
That was the last second change. So I know you all were looking forward to hearing from Scott, but unfortunately you get to hear from me instead. So sorry. I'm going to give you your grant administrative update. It's fairly busy, so I'm going to try to zip through this as quickly as possible in the interest of time. So currently we have 2 supplemental grant requests, 3 new intern grants, and 1 term extension request on an existing grant. And so the 2 supplemental grant requests both reside at Centennial Airport. The first one is 23 APA-02. They're going to get an additional $61,608 in state funds. And the other one is 25 APA-02 for an additional $10,790 in state funds. And both of those are getting plussed up to match additional AIG funding that is being delivered from the Fed. The intern grants, the first one is at Gunnison Crescent Butte Airport. The grant amount is $16,949. And this is to support the hiring of 1 individual for a 6-month internship. The next one is at Aspen County Airport for $16,064 for the hiring of 1 candidate for a 1-year internship. And the final internship grant is at Durango La Plata County Airport for $11,440 for a 6-month internship for 1 individual. And then the single term extension is for Eagle County Regional Airport, 23 EGE 01 will be extended from the current expiration date of June 30th, 2026 to June 30th, 2027. And this is for a lighting project. They need a little more time to accommodate some supply issues in getting some of the needed equipment, that lighting project. That is it. Any questions for me?
Just a small math question. For the Aspen Airport, the employee 25.91 an hour, that would be roughly 51,000 a year. They're only 50,000. They're looking for 50% share. That would be 25. The client is 16, but it's a 1-year position. They're between the 16 and the 25.
We're talking about
Aspen.
Aspen. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong airport. I'm sorry about that. If there is a math error there, I'd have to look at it.
If I noticed that as well, and my assumption is that they're planning to have them work a different number of hours per week.
Could be.
I'm not really sure. Maybe Scott knows a little bit more about Durango's internship.
Aspen,
I'm sorry.
I'd have to go dig up the details of the application.
It does.
But generally speaking, it includes like overtime hours, which we don't participate in, and other benefits that they might provide that we don't participate in.
Given what they're going through, they need all the help they can get, support it. If you guys got to come back for 9,000, it's fine, but it might be, I don't understand how it's 16 instead of 25.
Well, we process these administratively, and these are just updates. So if there was a math error, we could easily fix it on our side.
And they're the ones who submit the amount
Yes.
for the request.
We don't have any play in how much money they want to pay their employees. We just simply process the grant if it meets our requirement.
Because we match up to $20 an hour, right? So if they're paying more per hour, that would have a higher intern amount on their end, where our match would still be at a max of that $20.
So yeah, generally we at one point we did have a hard cap every year for internships, but we changed that to accommodate, cost of living changes and that kind of stuff. So we don't really have, it's more up to you.
Appreciate the update.
Anything else?
Any? Okay, I think we're probably just over halfway through the agenda. We've been going for an hour and 15 minutes. How about we take a 5-minute break and make sure anyone needs a bio break. So let's just resume at 3:20 if that.
Thank you, sir.
To resume. So we are at agenda item 9, the 2026 CDAG grant hearing round 2. Before we get started, I just wanted to make a couple of comments. The division has provided its recommendation for the second round of these grant applications. Before I open our board discussion, I wanted to confirm, has the division confirmed that each airport applicant has satisfied its requirements under state statute?
Yes, I have. Yep, I went through all of them, being kind of the one responsible for the entire program, and they all have certified that.
Okay. And just given the amount of public comment we had on this, yeah, because I wanted to make sure, I just, offered this briefing that, pursuant to the statutory authority, the board's role is limited to reviewing the recommendations made by the division and voting on the recommendations. The board lacks required statutory authority to perform an investigation, conduct a hearing or exercise, or any other functions regarding information provided in applications or concerning certifications required to be made by the applicants under Colorado revised statutes. So just really wanted to set the table for discussions before I turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I will kick off this first one. So 9.1. So this is actually the second round of our state and local grants, which second round isn't super common. They do happen. But really one of the main reason why we do have this second round was we did extend the deadline for the unleaded fuel program. So we only got one unleaded fuel application in the
katanas out of there. I know Fremont County was a very common place for them to come fly through, so they were there a lot. So I do think they can actually get a lot of transient aircraft coming through that can utilize it as well. So I don't know on the flight school aspect.
I don't either.
When we talked to them about the grant, because like Bree said, we were pretty intrigued when they submitted the application. Especially when they showed us where they were going to put it, which we were really excited about them thinking ahead. He mentioned being a great option for cross-country pilots coming from the Front Range or wherever. So it's not just for the locals, they want to bring more people to the area as well.
Especially with their new flights.
Not knowing how long that picture was taken, but that runway looks early.
Yeah.
That's 2024.
That is a new surface on the runway. The runway is actually planned to be redone in 29. It was done in the late 90s.
Got it.
You don't look very shiny.
Don't do it. I'm
Yeah.
You see the weeds?
Can't help it's flat.
That little known Photoshop filter called New Runway. Right.
It's hilarious. What do you guys call it when you're doing your PCI testing and there's grass and?
Grass.
That's fun.
Can't tell.
Sean, do you know if we're back?
I believe so. Is that-
Still enough camera, but it appears we're at least unmuted. I've asked the group, but I haven't got a for sure answer yet back.
Well, somebody made a comment in the chat.
Yeah, I think we're back. They just can't see us right now.
Can I make a request that the rubber removing system be used at Julesburg first?
Ooh, that's a different conversation.
Yeah, that is a different.
No, that's a different conversation.
Now we're good. I think we're good now.
Audio was restored. It was not. Okay.
Wanted to show the pictures for these grants before.
So with this one, again, this one was purely a UL grant, so I have nothing really to show you other than the cool picture as we made it, as we talked about. So again, $576,000 for Fremont County. We got it working, we just can't change them now. Okay. So the next one on the list, so this is the third and final one we're here to talk about today. So this is for the Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport. This was a $450,000 state grant to work on their taxiway Alpha. So this was a pavement maintenance project for them. You can kind of see it. We tried to highlight. It's actually in orange on the screen there. This is a pavement maintenance, so a crack seal, a fog seal, and a remark for their taxiway Alpha west of taxiway Alpha 3. So again, it's about a little over half of their taxiway that they're looking to do a taxiway pavement maintenance project on. So again, $450,000 for this project.
Is that taxiway in use?
It is very much in use. That is by far their busiest taxiway on the airfield.
I can vouch for that for sure. Yeah.
So yeah, that is pretty much used for every operation, either whether we're going east or west on that.
And fire's right there.
So I will say behind the scenes, as PCI came up just a little bit ago as well, this PCI is around its low 60s, which is about that kind of sweet spot where we do want a pavement maintenance project on there to kind of get a new surface on there, get a rejuvenator on it. Once it kind of gets that below that 60 amount, that's where we really want to talk about a full rehab where we're milling off 3 inches, putting 3 inches back on. And then kind of once you get closer down into the 40s, lower 40s, that's when we're actually be talking about a reconstruction project.
And what happens if that work is done?
So that's the hard part about this. So if this were not to get done, that PCI will continue to fall. And so instead of purely a pavement maintenance project, which is the crack seal, fog seal, and remark, it would turn into that mill and fill, which would change it from a $500,000 project to a probably $3 to $4 million project pretty quickly. So it's definitely something we try to watch. And again, this is statewide. When we get down into those 60s and 70s PCIs, that's where we're really talking to airports about getting some pavement maintenance done on the airport. Pretty good joint effort with this, and the pretty common one for us. We just did a grant for them a year ago to do the same pavement maintenance on the runway as well. I think it was the parallel runways last year. So that is the third of the second round of state and locals. I'd be happy to take any questions on any three of these. And if there's no questions, I'll request a motion to, but I will ask for questions first.
For the Rocky Mountain one, for the third one, they sent an email to us that had a couple documents. including the sample easement and a letter. That letter part of the board packet?
No, it was transmitted to you separately by email when we received it from the airport.
So I've got a couple questions for Rocky Mountain. Are they here today?
It appears Eric Dahl is on the call today.
Well, I guess my first question is, and I should have commented this for us, because in the meeting minutes, I was thinking about our meeting minutes, we deferred this grant application in January. And the reason in the meeting minutes, we said because of numerous public comments. We have even more public comments offered, so we're not deferring, we're here to discuss. Have those public comments been shared with Rocky Mountain?
They have not, because they were directed specifically to the cab and to the division, not to the airport. The airport may have received those same comments directly from those commenters, but we do not forward those.
Okay.
Are there any additional questions or?
Yeah, I mean, I have questions for the, so while I understand and appreciate that there's no investigation, I'm given the volume of public comments for my own evaluation and what I hope is everybody's evaluation, I'd love to get the airport's comments or response to a lot of those public comments. And I think arguably we could fall into two categories. As I indicated earlier in my comments, I think there's an important category of comments from the community of just concern. And they feel like they're getting, if they're concerned about noise or lead or other things, they complain to the airport says there's not much we can do about it. They complain to the FAA, they might not hear. They complain to their elected officials, they say there's not much they could do, so now they're coming to us. And unfortunately, there's nothing that we could do about a handful of these complaints. There is something related to, there are a set of complaints that specifically talked about 1235, House Bill 1235, which the airport referenced in their letter saying, House Bill 1235 requires easement compliance. They're saying they're in compliance with the easements, and they're saying there's no evidence that they're not in compliance with the easements. This board has no investigatory power, desire, and I appreciate that. But we do have evidence that has been submitted by commenters that they're not in compliance. And so I guess just at the highest level, I'd love to start by hearing from the airport about how to reconcile those two different things.
Want me to ask Eric to unmute?
Can you hear me okay?
You want me to ask Eric? Sure. Eric, I'm going to, okay, he unmuted, we're good. And he muted again.
All right. Are you able to hear me now?
You're up there, Eric.
Are you able to hear me now? I am unmuted.
You're good.
Okay. All right. As the commissioner alluded to, we did submit a letter to the Colorado Aeronautics Board in reference to the comments from January and the public comments about deferral of the grant, and a couple of comments that were concerned about whether or not the airport is in compliance with aviation easements that are applicable to House Bill 241235. When we submitted that letter, we said that the airport is in compliance with those requirements. I could reiterate that we are in compliance with those requirements. I cannot speak to what the public comments would say as to how we are or are not in compliance with those easements, other than to state and repeat that we are in compliance with the aviation easements that exist. We have not been shown any documentation that we are not. And certainly we're willing to listen and hear. But as it is a legal issue, all I really will say today is that we are in compliance with those aviation easements. And that's it.
Because I don't understand the legal issue.
It's House Bill 241235 that requires us to certify that we are in compliance with our aviation easements. We have submitted that paperwork to say that we are. all of the obligations that are currently in existence that we are familiar with and that we know about, we are in compliance with those.
So it's, I guess it's a challenge. I mean, we could, I don't think it's a good use of everybody's time to spend however long it would take to read I don't know how many we got, 15, 20, 25, 30 comments asking for the airport to respond, but we got some pretty prescriptive information about how there are residents that have an easement that is not dissimilar to the easement that you shared in the sample form of your document, saying that you're not in compliance. So I guess outside of reading that, Eric, thank you for being here and responding. I don't understand the comment. It's a legal issue. For me, it's an evaluation issue. So how do we reconcile, okay, there is no evidence that they're not in compliance. We have, I don't want to say dozens, but I'll say 20 people from the community that have raised their hand and said, but wait, they're not in compliance. Please investigate or consider that as part of your evaluation. I don't know how to reconcile those two things.
And Kevin, I think that's where it becomes the question of whether they're in compliance. You know, if a community member is alleging they're not in compliance and the airport's alleging they are, and they're certifying they are, I think that's where the legal.
And it becomes up to us to evaluate. I agree. I mean, I don't like the word, I don't love the word alleged, but there are people that there are people that are saying they're not. And when you look at the detail for the easements, when those easements represent a master plan from the 80s, just to be clear, nobody thinks that a master plan from the 80s is still going to apply today. But there is an easement that references those master plans from the 80s that specifically says runway length, load capacity, noise contours. Of course, those things changed. I mean, there's a whole runway that was, I believe, reconfigured and extended. So of course that changed. So and I'm not saying that it shouldn't have changed. And by the way, I'm also not saying that this $450,000 grant isn't deserved and needed and shouldn't absolutely happen. I can't reconcile how, with House Bill 1235 requiring easement compliance, Eric saying, the director, excuse me, saying, yes, in fact, these easements exist. And here's a copy of the easement. The easement then says, oh, it's got this 88 master plan. The 88 master plan is absurd, but you could throw it into it, into any AI and see specific things saying, yeah, it's got specific noise contours and runway assumptions. I mean, there's no ambiguity in my brain for the fact that that Rocky Mountain looks a lot different today than it does in 1988. Everything about it, right? Noise contours, runway layouts, traffic pattern, like everything is different, and it should be different. But I'm not the one in the 90s that said they should have this easement, and I'm not the one that put House Bill 1235 into law. So I can't personally reconcile how these two things could coexist. So in my evaluation, I need help reconciling that. So, and this board doesn't have any, quote, investigatory power, but we have dozens of letters from people saying they're not. And we have Rocky Mountain saying they are.
And I think there is the problem that we have, which is, first off, I appreciate the people who took the time to write and submit that. Or when you look at what our process is, we don't solicit in the grant process. We don't go solicit other parties other than the grant requester. In this case, it was Rocky Mountain Airport. So we rely on the staff to tell us in that one question, which says, are they in compliance with their aviation easement? Where they check the box, yes. We asked staff to verify, which they did in that process. And we can't consider whether it's the public or any other entity that our rules and process is that are they in compliance? They answered yes, staff verified. And so.
Well, that staff, just a couple points of clarification. Thank you. And like you, I also appreciate, I know people will be watching this, dozens of people that responded. So I want to again.
33.
Thank them.
33.
Right, 30, man. So.
I've read them all and they're at 33.
And there's a couple that are really personal and they were hard to get through. I mean, because there was emotion. It's hard. So staff didn't, because they don't have that legislative or the direction from this board to investigate. So we didn't investigate. But on some, one commenter did point out the fact that there are, for some grants, we do verify, like asphalt. But we don't I'm sure, I don't know, maybe there have been situations where folks have asked for asphalt and then we went in and said, okay, it's not really required or it could wait a year or whatever. We didn't do that in this case. And we can, as a board, make that decision. But right now, I understand and respect that the staff isn't doing that. But
I don't actually think that's true. The staff does verify whether there's a need for the work to be performed. So I think there's two separate things here. You've got the issue with whether the funds are being requested for an airport purpose, an aviation purpose, I think is what the statute says. And then you have this issue of the certifications, and I think they're two separate issues. Staff has verified that all applicants for all of these grants, including the ones to come in the next group, that they certified as required by the statute and that they met the other statutory requirements. So they stated that today, but then they've also and I think Todd's talked about this in the past, their process is to work with all of the airports across the state on what their needs are going to be coming up so that things are planned years in advance. So this isn't different than asphalt. It's a different project, but it doesn't mean that they haven't gone out there and looked at the status of that taxiway to see whether this work is needed. And that's what it sounds like you were saying.
No, I'm saying in the event of asphalt, we go out and we look at the taxiway and say, is this required? I could have staff and they say, oh yeah, it's a PSI or of, it's grass fault, like this is necessary, right? 100% I could ask staff this. In this case, there's a certification. Now, if I'm asking staff, do we know whether or not they're in compliance with the easement? The response is, well, they have certified that they're in compliance with the easement. There's been no.
What the statute requires. It puts it puts this task on the airport. It does not put it on.
I am not
verify it, and so I think that's where the issue lies.
% supportive of staff on this issue. 100%. It is for evaluation purposes, which is the job of this board. I have outstanding questions reconciling, and I can't figure out how to reconcile these two things. The more than 30 comments we got, and the fact that there is an easement. And then in my reading of that easement, referencing the 88 master plan, there has been, I like the word somebody used, operational drift between what existed in 88 and what exists today. And by the way, of course there's operational drift. Of course runways get extended and enhanced. Of course noise contours change. But in this particular easement, there were 4 different covenants that said those things will not change. And if they do, your easement's no good. Your easement should be terminated, at least my understanding. So had Rocky Mountain come and said, oh, I don't have any easements, it would be a different conversation. But Rocky Mountain has come and saying, yes, easements exist. Yes, I'm in compliance. There are 4 operational limitations, I think is what the easement refers to them as. And one, if not all of them, by any logical reading, and the 30-something people that have submitted have told us that there's operational drift. They're not acting in that way. No, I can't close the gap between how those two things coexist, and I need help.
So Kevin, meanwhile, and the rest of the board, meanwhile, on the other side of this, that, we're talking about, a taxiway that's primary use and is degraded. And so the fundamental responsibility of one of our fundamental responsibilities, Colorado Aeronautics Board, is to ensure that the aviation infrastructure in this state is maintained and safe to use. We do that through helping fund critical maintenance of runways and taxiways, and we do that at airports that are expected to have ongoing concern. BJC is not subject to being closed down. It's an operating airport that has
100% agree.
That and again, I ask the questions, what happens if we don't do it? So one of two things is it gets more expensive as we wait, or there is a safety issue, and so while the easement issue is one that continues to be talked about and worked on, I think from a legal, that's a longer term issue that we can't resolve. The airport says that they're in compliance. Staff checked and with all that we can within the statute, we understand they're in compliance. And so in the near term, we need to avoid creating a safety issue on the airport, or one that's going to be fundamentally more expensive as time goes on. So I'm with you. I don't, I read all 33. Some of those were very hard to read, and I appreciate the issues that those folks are faced with. But as it relates to funding repavement of a taxiway that is of primary use in the airport, we also have a responsibility and obligation to ensure that that those things are maintained and kept at safe levels and get use. So
if I could piggyback on that real quick, I read through all of them as well, and one of the big common themes in there, outside of the discussion about the navigation easements, was the safety factor and the issue with the number of PSEs that is experienced at this airport. And I would say more than 2/3 of the comments that I read cited safety in there. And this is a great project. It's going to be better pavement. It's going to be better markings. It's going to increase the amount of safety. So with that said, I want to make a motion to approve 9.1 2026 CDAG state and local route 2.
So moved. Been moved and seconded. I can see there's further discussion because Bree's hand is up, I think.
Yes, and I will try to be quick with it. I was actually going to move that we separate the unleaded fuel grants from the other grant, just for ease of. I think that it may be different across the board for both of these, just so that we can do the process board. And I just wanted to say for the discussion purposes, I understand that a lot of comments that we got aren't necessarily relevant to passing this grant application. Important, relevant, all of those things. And that's something that I want to touch on and just our sort of closing comments, because I don't want to ignore everything that was said. And I do understand that it's not necessarily all relevant specifically to this grant application. The idea that if we don't fund this pavement maintenance, that it doesn't get funded. I think that, the airport does have the capacity to pay for some of this themselves. We are not the only funding mechanism for maintenance, especially with the airport this busy and that generates this much economic impact for the region. I think there is also the possibility that they could generate it themselves. One thing that nobody's really touched on in this is that part of the HB 24-1235 was that the airport be in compliance with state and federal law, and I did in at least one of these comments that we got had primary source documentation that indicated that they may not be in compliance with state and federal law as well. So that it gives me pause. Not that it's up for me to investigate, but the information was presented to us in a way that I think is difficult to ignore. It does not require interpretation. Was information that is sort of, I don't know, calls into question, which is why I would like to consider the option of separating out these bonds.
Before we go any further, let me just read the statute so that everyone has the exact language, because I think words matter on these things. It says an airport or an entity operating an airport must certify in writing for each grant application that the airport or entity is in compliance with all applicable federal laws and regulations. Just wanted to read that because I think we're talking about a few different things when it comes to the role of the board and the requirements as they sit under the House bill. I have never seen us separate grants.
We have done that typically in the past. We can do that, y'all.
Okay,
do it in advance.
Yeah, exactly. I've never seen that. This was my words, but does staff have any concerns with us separating?
Yeah, I was gonna say
we have an active motion, so.
How do I need to rescind my motion?
I'm gonna channel my old Robert's Rules of Order training. I think what the chair would typically ask the motion, the first and the second, to rescind or retract their motion and start from scratch. If I'm looking at some of the other parliamentarians in the room that might know better.
Hit the book.
Yeah, I don't know if Kent took the book with him, I think.
Signing place.
I'm looking at those that have served in elected capacities that might know how that works.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest is for you guys to withdraw your motion. If you want to.
Right.
You could also say if you want to call for the vote.
So it's just,
Just to be.
For to see.
Are there any rescission?
Extension has to be from the person that
Yeah.
made the motion.
Yeah, that made the motion.
Yes.
You choose to withdraw.
Okay, I'll rescind my motion to approve all three together.
I will rescind. Second. To approve all three.
So there is no longer a motion on the table. Now I think we need a motion.
So can I make a motion that we approve or we vote to approve 26A01 and 26AIZ01?
I'm sorry, Mark, you're looking at the next one. That's,
oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, on page.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay, page 31.
Right here.
Right.
Okay, let me do that again. I make a motion that we approve 26 BDU UL01 and 26 Victor 6 UL01.
I will second that.
Moved and seconded to approve the first two grants listed. Is there any further discussion on those? No further discussion. All those in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Chair votes in approval as well. Now we have one grant, the BJC grant remaining.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 26 BJC01.
Second.
And moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on this?
I had a question. I was not done with the questions that will assist in my evaluation. Now we have motion on the table, so I don't know what the.
We can discuss.
We can discuss.
Yeah.
But can the airport respond?
I think that's the chair's discretion.
I think that's fine.
Okay.
I am unmuted.
Great, Director Dahl, thank you. Thanks for, as we went through that procedural hiccup there. So Eric, help me understand. So I very much appreciate you sharing that sample easement. It looks like others from the community have identical or nearly identical easements. Or Eric, can you help me sort of reconcile what somebody called operational drift between that 88 master plan and where we are today, and how it could be in compliance with that 88 master plan, given the million changes that have occurred in the last 20, however many years it is, 28, 38, gosh.
Okay, so when we're talking about the aviation easements for Rock Creek specifically, there were 5 clauses that were of concern when it went to court. All of them were found to be in compliance except for the last one, which was the issue of the 1988 master plan and the 60 DNL contour that invalidated and terminated those easements along the central corridor of the arrival path for the runway. Those were the only easements that were terminated. They simply don't exist. So from a practical standpoint, for example, your easement in Rock Creek is still in effect. The airport is still in compliance with that because it did not violate for the noise contours. So when the airport says we are in compliance with all aviation easements, that's a true statement. The court found that we were in compliance with all aviation easements in Rock Creek except for that central corridor. The central corridor easements don't exist. So for what practical matter there is, we are in compliance with all aviation easements.
So Eric, this is why we need more time, and I wish somebody would. So Eric, the court didn't, on the third one, the court didn't talk about that. So because there was a litigation, which I was not a part of, my exists and full disclosure and all that, but I did read the court filing. The third element of the 5 was not discussed in the court at all. And it wasn't necessary because the court found, you're right, for that, what you refer to as the central corridor, the noise corridor in that central corridor was found to have been changed in that, I think it was whatever that master plan was, called the 2000 master plan, maybe it was 2001. But the court specifically said for number 3, we didn't look at it because it doesn't matter, because they've already violated, they being Rocky Mountain, had violated the noise corridor, so there was no point in even looking at number 3. So the court didn't find that you're in compliance with all 5 of these things. So and I appreciate you being here and having a good time, in these awkward questions. Are you saying that you are in compliance with all 5 of these, Eric? That you have, that the 88 master plan, that there has been no operational drift from the 88 master plan?
The airport stance, and as I said to you before, was the airport is in compliance with all aviation easements.
Kevin, this is starting to feel
Okay.
like we're deviating from just a simple set of questions.
Feels like we're deviating from a simple set of questions.
Yeah,
So I was
feels like
responding.
we're going into the investigatory arena.
So I asked a question whether or not they're in compliance with the 88 master plan. Eric brought up a court filing saying what the court found. I happen to have taken my time to read that and ask the follow-up question, which he said, I've said what I'm going to say, which is we're in compliance. So I don't feel like I've been able to reconcile those two. So I would ask that if you feel, and by the way, safety for me is the most important thing. I want to reinforce that this taxiway needs work, 100%. It needs work. I want to fund it. I can't reconcile how we're required to do that, how we're required, what 1235 required, evidence we have in front of us, and we're in an impossible situation. So given the impossible situation I'm in, I have the information. I don't have the information I need to approve. I have the information I need for today.
Well, and if I can just interject, I would not call what you have before you from the property owners and concerned citizens or Rocky Mountain to be evidence, because this isn't an adjudicatory setting. It's information that people have submitted and comments from the public and a response from the airport. It's not evidence. That's
evidence. It was in the letter. That's why I asked. So we received a letter that's not part of the packet. In that letter, Eric referred to as evidence. It's not capital E evidence. It's not meant in the, I didn't bring up the word evidence. Rocky Mountain used the word evidence.
And that's fine. I'm just trying to clarify for benefit of everybody here that this is not an evidentiary hearing. So
It's not, of course not. I didn't use the word evidence. I'm responding to them to Rocky Mountain, sending a letter, which again, is not in the pocket. So people from the community, I don't think have a copy of that, which is challenging. It doesn't matter. But yes, in that it said there is no evidence to the contrary. We have a lot of letters referencing the easement. So anyway, I think.
understood. I wanted to make clear, just because we've had information coming from all sides that, you know, we're not really looking at evidence in this setting. Courtrooms look at evidence, you know, other types of hearings and other types of boards that can hold hearings look at evidence. You guys are looking at basically comments from both sides, and information, and then you have the application and the certification, et cetera. So.
Thank you.
And I guess the other thing I'd point out is that a lot of this information would be available by core request. So it's part of the records that are public, even if not attached to the packet. So it's not that they're inaccessible or being kept from anybody. They can be made available by other means that are available to public.
I could just say, just from my standpoint, I, like everybody else, reading those is, you know, pretty powerful. I feel for them. But as far as process, I can understand exactly what you're saying and that you could come to the conclusion that you can't support that. The way I'm looking at it is we've got a process where we verify that the airport's certified. They did. I looked at the signature. And so I feel like I can vote for it based on the safety and that we want to support unlimited fuel projects, which I know there's a difference of opinion there too, but I wanted to toss out, that's my thought process.
Before we vote, I just want to reiterate, I'm not at all calling into question staff's research on this. I appreciate that you absolutely fulfilled your duties in verification on this. I'm delighted to fund any and all infrastructure fuel projects for BJC or any other airport that applies. Not in evidence, just the information that I was given about this. I do not, for myself, feel that I can vote for this. I have what I would call a reasonable doubt for myself about the compliance with some of these things based on the information that we've received. And that's my just opinion on the matter. I do think that there's a need for this maintenance, obviously, because the division's clearly maintained a need for that. And I have every reason to trust your judgment on this. I do not think that this is the only way in which the airport can fund that pavement maintenance. So I don't think that we're the only thing standing between the airport and total unsafe chaos.
And can I ask a quick question? Just the unleaded fuel funding that they got before, when was that? Was that after the bill passed?
Yes.
So we've already kind of approved.
Yes.
Okay.
Isn't there a bit of a carve out though for the unleaded, for the navigation easement certification, except for unleaded?
Not as the statute's written.
Part
The
of it.
statute requires a certification from every airport, not just the 5, for every grant application. Those 2 certifications, they're in F and G, I believe, of the statute, 2F and 2G.
Upholding all the federal laws, and then the aviation easements are a requirement for all of them.
So that
For
was,
all airports, not just, you know.
Yeah.
so that was true of the 2 unleaded grants that we just approved.
Yes, you're correct.
We have a motion and a second on the table. Is there any other discussion? I want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to speak. And moved and seconded. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes in approval as well. Opposed, same sign.
No.
You want to do a hand vote?
I believe it was 7-2. And so the motion passes. Thank you, Eric, for staying on.
Madam Chair, could staff respectfully make a request for a roll call vote on that for the minutes?
Sure. Great. Okay. Is it okay if I use first names?
Yeah.
Okay. Kevin.
I got two of them, so.
Okay.
No.
I have two too, so, no, yes.
Leslie? Yes. Trimby? Yes. Daniel?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Yes.
Mark? Bree?
No.
Chair votes in approval. Thank you. I think that was.
Thank you very much.
Next up, the CDAG Federal Match and Overmatch grants.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So I will jump into 9.2. So this is our federal match and overmatch grant hearing. So really this is that second phase of our CDAG program. Again, January mainly being our state and local grants. And then our April meeting is for our federal match and overmatch grants. And so for the federal match aspect, again, for the newer members, really how that works is when airports get federal funding from the FAA, there is a match component with that. And so what we help airports do is we cut that local match requirement usually in half, up to $250,000 for the AIP program. Right now, the FAA is their match requirement is 5%. And so all of these grants before you today are 2.5%. Except Colorado Springs, because they are big enough, they still had to stay at the 90-10%. So kind of just wanted to explain that aspect. And then the overmatch piece, there are several of these grants that are complicated and pretty large where we added additional state funding to them, or the airports requested from us additional state funding to get these projects completed. So in total, you all should have a list of all of them as well. There are 30 federal match and overmatch grant applications, totaling just over $6 million at $6,260,820. Here is a breakdown of that program on the screen, which it makes it much easier to see. So as you can see, the AIP program accounted for just over $1.7 million of the program. The bill funding was at 1.37, and the federal match aspect or the overmatch aspect was just over 3, for a total of the 6.260820. So the cool thing about this is in total, this actually is going to complete $187 million in projects statewide due to that $172 million in federal funding. So I would be happy to answer any questions you have about any of the projects in the list in the following pages. But other than that, I can request a motion as well. There's not any questions. Okay, I will actually, so staff is recommending a motion to approve these federal match, these 30 federal match and overmatch grants totaling $6,260,820.
So move.
Second. Does that exclude Burlington and Granger? The numbers you did?
Yes, it does. I didn't get to the last page of my memo. Thank you very much. So we have some conflict issues on the board as well. So I will change that up a little bit. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So with that being said, there are some motions on the table. Do we need to pull those back again?
Yeah.
I apologize. I forgot this needed broken out. Thank you. So with that, so instead of 30 applications, I'm actually only requesting 28 of those applications to start with, because Burlington and Grand Junction will be pulled separately as we have a possible conflict on the board. So I am requesting, my first request is approval of the 28 other applications totaling $5,384,479.
I'll move on that one.
So can we? So since precedent seems to be important, and I need some time to reconcile because I'm looking, precedent precedent was brought up related to an exclusion from 1235 related to unleaded fuel. I do believe this funding limitation directly utilized towards the transition from leaded to unleaded gasoline is the narrow exception in 1235. I'm looking at it right now. I have questions about that. Because precedent is important to this board, I would also like to call out to exclude the Rocky Mountain matching grants under 9.3 as well. So we can, we know which way this is going, but I don't feel like it would be fair for me to reject the other grants. That makes sense.
Are you requesting to pull the Rocky Mountain Metro for
Rocky Mountain
action?
Before we actually make a motion.
Yeah, absolutely. I can do that for you. And I did run the numbers really quickly based on how the last one went. So
I appreciate it.
Sorry, guys.
So I will change my approval request. So
We had to rescind again.
No, I'll rescind.
dang it, I'm sorry. Having
Thank you.
Just rescission of the. I'm sorry for missing that. I checked and thought it was an alphabetical order.
and purely looking for individual action on it, correct? Similar to how we did the state law.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. So I will change that again. So at this point, I am actually looking for a combined approval for 27 of the total applications, totaling $5,284,761. So that is the total amount, less Burlington, less Grand Junction, and less Rocky Mountain Metro.
So before we make.
Sorry.
No, you're good. As long as we don't have other exemption, we're just practicing.
Has the book out now, just
Pretty much all prepared. Okay, so we have a motion. Is there a second? Second.
Me too. Okay.
Okay. Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on these 27 grants? All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Chair votes in approval as well. Motion passes. Okay, that brings us to 9.2.1.1, which is the grants for the Burlington Airport. Can you give us on that?
Absolutely. So we have the information on the screen as well. So this separate individual action for Burlington, Kit Carson County Airport, they have requested $551,499 from the state. And this is a match and overmatch grant as well. So they got a pretty small federal grant to rehabilitate their entrance road. So you can kind of see the highway coming, kind of cutting off that top right corner. That is the highway that comes out from Burlington out to the airport. And then that entrance road as it comes in. I think Daniel will probably agree with me. It is not in great shape. And is really, we'll use grass since it's been used already today. It is really falling apart. So they are using a portion, I believe, of their bill funds for this, of which we're matching. And then we also have an overmatch on this grant as well to just completely rehab that and actually reconfigure, I believe, that entrance road as it comes into the airport. So this is really the airport's highest priority right now. They've done a ton of projects on their runway recently. Their taxiway alpha is brand new and have done quite a bit of maintenance as well. And so this is honestly the airport's highest priority and definitely one we support behind the scenes.
Move to approve that match.
Second. Any further discussion?
Daniel will abstain from this vote. I think I need to say that, right?
Yes.
No, I'll be abstaining.
All in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Chair votes in approval as well. Opposed, same sign.
Thank you very much. We will go on to the next one for the Grand Junction Region. Let's get to the right page this time. So this request is purely match on funding, federal funding for the airport. They actually have two different projects ongoing right now. One is the very large project to replace their runway 1129 that they're shifting into that hillside, we'll call it. So that accounts for, actually they're getting $39.9 million in federal funding for that. And so we hit our cap of $250,000 on that funding. And then the second project that they have ongoing that they're using some federal funds for as well is a terminal expansion project where they looks like they're getting just over $2.8 million in bill funding for that, accounting for our 2.5% match at $74,842. So in total, between these two projects, they have requested $324,842, requesting approval of those two projects in grant funding.
I move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I will abstain from the vote, but I will still facilitate. Any further discussions? All in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Thank you very much.
And
Last one, we did have a slide for it as well. So this is that pulled Rocky Mountain Metro grant. This accounts for $99,718. This is to match almost $3.8 million of federal funding. Again, it is highlighted on there in orange. It's somewhat hard to see, but this is for a portion of taxiway Delta at the Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport. So earlier we talked about taxiway alpha being in the PCIs of the 60s range. Today, that part of taxiway Delta is in the very low 50s with some areas in the high 40s. So this area actually needs a full rehab / reconstruction on this section. And again, this is one that comes in at 95% federal funding. Our $99,000, 2.5% of that federal funding. And then the local funds you can see is much higher as they are bringing more money to this project to make sure it gets done.
Todd, what's the building that's at the end of that taxiway?
That is the Pilatus facility where they are finishing out the Pilatus aircraft.
So they're a user of
That's the existing one?
Yeah, it is correct.
That's
They are a heavy user of this as well. And again, that taxiway is used for a lot of aircraft taxiing in and out of that area.
I'm just curious, how old is it?
I will answer you very shortly.
If you knew that off the top of your head.
Yeah, you're gonna question how I know things.
Yeah, sorry, the taxiway, not the Pilatus building.
I will answer that. It looks like it was last construction date 1992. So it has quite a bit of age on it. So again, that area is in pretty poor condition. And then the area just to the, this airport's not north-south, pointing down in that photo for the rest of taxiway Delta is in poor condition as well. And we see that being a future project as well. But this is for that area kind of highlighted just purely in orange there. As really far as we can get that federal funding to go to get that project complete. But again, that's where a lot of that traffic is on that piece. That's the reason we're kind of tackling it first.
do you know for the federal funding, is there discretionary funding or is it all entitlements?
For this one, I actually should know the answer to that question. Kit, do you know by chance? I had it up here.
I thought there was some discretionary funding available for it, but we're confirming right now.
Yeah, I believe there's discretionary in it as well. I will know very shortly.
Are you done?
I am trying to get an answer to her on the discretionary funding. For this, they are using some entitlements.
Yeah.
This is purely entitlements. This is not discretionary. So yeah, they carried over a lot of entitlements to get this project done. Great question though.
Madam Chairman, I move to approve this matching fund grant to Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport.
I'll second.
And moved and seconded. Is there further discussion?
Two comments similar to my concern on 9.1. I do not believe we have received sufficient information for me personally, for the evaluation that they are in compliance with their navigation easement, and 1235 specifically would require that. Second, I just want to make a comment that we have previously provided grants to Rocky Mountain related to their support for unleaded aviation fuel. I do believe that that was an exception, paragraph 4310, 108.5 2H specifically says it does not apply to a project that is quote directly utilized during the transition from leaded to unleaded aviation gasoline. So since that was an important, hey, we've done this before, we should do it again. I wanted to make that comment, but I have not seen any, given the public comment we have that they are not in compliance. I would ask, I don't, my own personal evaluation, I do not have reason to think they're in compliance with 1235.
I'd just like to reiterate my previous comments about from the previous vote. I'd like to that.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Chair votes by. Opposed, same thing. Okay. Sorry, you probably want a roll call.
That would be preferred for the minutes.
I'm sorry, we're just gonna vote twice on this one also. Okay, Kevin.
No.
Gigi.
Yes.
Leslie.
Yes.
Trimby. Yes. Daniel.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
Reed. No. Chair votes in approval. Motion passes 7-2.
Wait, just chair votes no.
Oh, I said an approval.
Okay.
No, approval, I'm sorry.
It did sound like.
And then I said, so, it was all one word, I'm sorry. Chair votes in approval. So.
Closed caption, you said.
So that was 9.2.9.3. So now we're on to 9.3.
Thank you again. So with all of those approvals and the motions and the anti-motions, this is the formal resolution 2026-04, combining all of those approvals into one, as this is actually the list that would go to the governor's office for concurrence and the resolution associated with it. So again, this sums up all those approvals we've done through 9.1 and 9.2. So these program plus the federal match and overmatch program accounts for $7,349,820. And that is what we are looking up for approval for with the approval of resolution 2026-04.
Is that the sliding one right now?
That's the good one. Yep. That sums up everything.
Barb, for those conflicts from, that are embedded in.
I'm trying to remember what we've done in the past with the resolution. I don't. Yeah, it doesn't.
But
Yeah.
you called it out specifically previously as what we've done historically.
Yes, so I think
Okay.
it's fine.
Sorry, just.
No, I was curious in that as well. But
I know it comes up every year, but. Okay. Any other question?
I'm looking for a motion to approve resolution 2026-04.
you can take that one. You can have
Okay, so moved.
second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I just procedurally have a question.
Yes.
Since this includes your two airports.
That's what I was asking.
Do you have to abstain?
Well,
That's what I was
they
asking.
said how good they were.
The vote.
Yeah. What's that?
You abstained in voting,
Correct.
so I don't believe you have to abstain with
We've not
respect
done it
to the
that way. They've all-
resolution.
All voted on the entire resolution.
Similarly, even though I declined to support two grants, they've passed, so of course I now support the funding. So my intent will be to vote yes.
Okay, thanks.
But since this is an educational session. Putting a vote on that. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, please signal by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Chair votes in approval as well.
Thank you very much. You're done with me for a little bit.
All right, turn it over to you, baby.
Oh, you're not done with me yet. So this is my actual favorite part of the program. So now that the resolution is approved, I wanted to show you guys statewide impact. So one back, maybe, Sean? Thank you, sir. So now with all those approvals, so the 2026 combined CDAG program, so this is January and then both 9.1 and 9.2 today. We have a total state funding of 16,414,152, which is underneath the number that Bryce helped us update just a little bit ago of 16,425. But the other cool thing about this is, as you look through again, so $16 million of our funding helped to leverage $172 million of federal funding for a total for all of this calendar year of just over $200 million, which is a pretty big feat statewide. And then so that's 54 grants to 42 airports statewide. And then again, my favorite slide is really the next one that shows really that statewide impact. So each one of the orange circles is a federal match grant. The blue ones are the state and local grants. And then you can also see those 3 unleaded fuel program grants as well. And so with the unleaded program, with those 3 alone, we were just under $1 million this year to help transition away from leaded fuels. And again, that was, we set aside that 1.5 and we were able to use almost $1 million of it this year. So it was really great to see those projects go forward. But again, it's just really great to see the impact statewide of all this money. So thank you very much for that.
Dave, once we have approval from the governor, do you do a press release on this information?
Sean's actually got it queued up, ready to go. And once the governor gives his concurrence, recently he's been interested in offering a quote. So we'll send that to his team for a review. And usually it takes about a week to run through all the internal approvals to get that out. So yes, long answer to short question.
And I think this map has a particular interest to people that are in those areas wondering, does everything happen in the Front Range?
And this map goes with the transmittal tomorrow of your resolution to the governor's office.
It's a pretty powerful visual.
Hard to explain it any other way other than this. Yeah, I love it. Okay, thank you again very much. This was a well put together program. The planning team put a ton of time into this program this year. So thank you. Great job.
I think we're on to for out-of-state travel plan.
Let's talk about this. This will be very quick. Madam Chair, every year in April, the CAB approves the division's next fiscal year out-of-state travel plan and professional development plan. That plan proposed for 2027 is included in your packet. And again, that includes costs with all the planned trips outside the state for division staff and from time to time, such as the SAO meeting, the CAB chair or designee. Also includes professional development opportunities for educational conferences and some the like. This year, the out-of-state travel plan totals $46,350. And that's with 8,450 specifically related to the different cost centers Bryce talked about last time. We have to account for those a little differently. Our total plan this year we're asking for is $54,800, a decrease of $4,150 from this current year's plan. The decrease is largely attributable to the NASAO annual convention costs. Last year that was held in Anchorage. More money to go to Anchorage than it is to go to Grand Forks, North Dakota, which is where we are in September. So we would respectfully request the CAB's approval of the FY 2027 travel plan as presented in your packet.
And moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. There's a as well. I think we're going back to you, Todd, for the SIB one.
Hopefully this one's more straightforward. So with number 11 here, I have to find my days. February 27th, 2026, the astronaut Kent Rominger Airport submitted a state infrastructure bank loan application to us for $750,000. They are looking to use this funding to develop, design, and construct a transient aircraft hangar for the airport. There's a nice design of it right there, 100 by 100, to be able to get some of those transient aircraft out of the weather in Del Norte. And then also they would be using a portion of this funding to assist in the match that we gave them grants for to develop some new taxiways at the airport. This airport, although general aviation, pretty small airport, it's growing at a rate I have never seen before. Caitlin will just sit over there and smile because she's seen it since she started here as well. But this airport is absolutely booming. It is amazing to see this. They continue to build new taxi lanes, and by the time we can get new taxi lanes built, there's hangars on them, and they need some more taxi lanes. So again, this $750,000 will help to account for that new transient hangar, and then also their associated match on this. So their application met all of the requirements of the SIB program. We submitted the application down to our headquarters team per all the requirements. They have kind of worked with the airport to ensure all of the fiduciary aspects are somewhat in line. And really, as a board here, we are purely approving that this project fits within the SIB program itself. And it does in that aspect. And really the next step in the process, if approved here, would go to the SIB committee to do that final approval. And that's where that fiduciary aspect comes in. The group agrees. We would take a resolution from here to that group, and that's where that final approval would actually take place. So that's really kind of an introduction to what their request is. We actually do have the airport manager on the phone along with the county as well, if you have any questions for them about this request.
The one question I have, and maybe they can answer it, is what's driving all the growth? It's wonderful, but why?
Brian.
Hi, yeah, this is Brian, if you can hear me.
Hi, Brian.
Yes, we've had some exponential growth in our area. We're in southern Colorado. We're right on the Rio Grande River, and we are one of the closest airports to the Wolf Creek ski area. Also, we have gold medal waters between here and Creed for trout fishing, and the population increases exponentially every summer. And actually, and Gigi can probably tell me, or can probably corroborate this, that the traffic has already started to increase in our area because of the tourists, most of them coming from the Oklahoma, Texas area, coming up to our spot. I have weekly requests for hangar spaces. As a matter of fact, tomorrow I'm meeting a gentleman that wants to build a hangar at our airport, and he's building a house in South Fork. So that's really the driver for the growth is our recreational and our just business increase in this area.
Hey, Brian, how many based aircraft?
Right now, there's about 60 based aircraft and about 47 hangars.
Wow. Thank you. Like this is very cool.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. And to kind of give you some background of the program as well. So again, this is a $750,000 request. Currently in the account, there is currently almost $1.6 million sitting there. So there's definitely enough money in the account to uphold this request as well. And again, be happy to answer any questions before I provide my recommendation.
I have a question. It says that it'll be used for matching funds.
Yeah.
Can you just elaborate a little bit on what it's matching?
Absolutely. So in January, we approved I will actually look it up right now as well. We gave them a pretty large grant to do work on those taxiways, to construct those taxiways, and this will help backfill their local match. So those, our state and local grants come at 90% state, 10% local aspect. So this will help them in that aspect to provide match on those. It'll help with their 10% match.
The grant was for a snow removal equipment building.
Oh, okay. I have the wrong project. Yep. This is the SIB for this. Got it.
SIB is just for this?
Caitlin, I'll throw that piece to you.
Sorry, so the SIB loan is actually just for this project?
No, the SIB loan is for the project of the new building, the hangar itself, and then match on the SRE building so that they can spread out their $23,000 local match over the 10 years rather than them have the cash flow of the 23 this year.
And that's allowed under the SIB loan program?
Yes.
Okay.
I abstain from this one.
You do not. So that's a great question Mark's asking because he's on the SIB committee, the loan committee. The CAB, committee consists of myself, representative of the board, which you've all previously have appointed Mark to that position, the SIB program manager for CDOT and the CDOT CFO. That's who comprises the financial SIB committee. So if you want to have somebody else do it, Mark, you're still the person who's been appointed.
Happy to do it, but it's okay to hold.
Absolutely.
So one thing I will do as well, and if Brian is still on the call, I believe the match is actually for the project they are looking for next year, which is that expansion. Yes. Those expansion taxiways. So we gave them their grant in January. Now that I'm putting it back together, was for an SRE building, where it was a $280,000, I think, ish. But this match for this program, Brian, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, so the SRE building, and thank you very much for approving that grant. That's going to be a big help to us. But for 2027 in our CIP, we have paving projects which include 2 taxiways and a teacup turnaround at the end of taxiway or the end of runway 24. So the $750,000 is going to build our hangar, our transient aircraft hangar, and it's also going to provide for the matching grants for the 2 taxiways and the teacup turnaround for the CIP grants in 2027.
And that'll be a request we bring in January of 2027. I knew it was matched for that taxiway project. I just had it in the wrong year. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, thank you, Todd.
I think you have your hand up. I'd like to make a motion that we accept this SIV application for the astronaut Kent Rominger Airport, $750,000. Second. But never mind.
Can I add some wording to it, please? Because this approval is purely saying that, yes, it meets the intent of the program, and it will be contingent upon favorable recommendation from the SIB review committee. That's the only piece I need to add to it, just so this isn't the formal approval of the application of the whole loan itself.
As described in our packet.
As described in the packet.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, same sign. Chair votes in approval as well.
Thank you very much.
We're on to our program updates.
Madam Chair, I'm going to go through this as quickly as possible. The division attended the Aerospace Clinic Capital this year. That was in March. That was a great time. I also was able to attend the Women in Aviation International Annual Conference. And Trimby and I, who was representing our, we were able to meet with our contingents from NASAO, which was great. You see the picture on the right. That is from the Girls in Aviation Day, which is kind of the culmination of the conference itself. And I have the honor of being on the planning committee for that. So great times.
Excellent.
Yeah. I'm also on the Legacy Campus Aviation Advisory Board. So I had the opportunity to attend their VIP State of the Douglas County School District. And as you recall, we also had a tour of the whole campus and all of their additional pathways. They have 4 additional pathways coming in. One of those is advanced manufacturing on the aerospace side of things, which is really cool, as well as electric, automotive on the EV hybrid side of things. It's pretty amazing, everything that they're doing. But I did want to kind of share that you all approved in January an advanced aviation training device for Legacy Campus, a 50-50 match grant for that. And that will allow students to actually log time for not just their primary certificates, but also for instrument rating. So the pictures that you see would be the second top right. Lower left is actually where they're going to put the simulator. It is a full motion simulator, so it's a little bigger than the 3 smaller ones that you see there. And then also the picture on the bottom right, that line of photos are all of the students who have either soloed or taken their check rides. So that was kind of exciting to see all of that. And I just wanted to share that, let's see, aviation events are starting to stack up for the year, including AA Pancake Breakfast Alliance. Did you have a question?
Not for public.
Okay.
It was, I feel like we gotta say something. It was a dumb question. Okay. What are those above the pictures? Are those air vents? Are they cameras? What are those?
That is a great.
I believe they look like air vents.
They look like
real
fancy air vents.
They look like air vents.
Maybe be careful. It's where the Colorado experience used to be when it was the wildlife experience. So yeah, that's a great question. I have no idea.
Okay, I don't feel
No
bad.
idea. Sorry.
They're inverted belly buttons.
Yes, here we go. There's gonna be a pancake breakfast here at CFO on May 30th. And that will be with chapter 301. And then Leslie mentioned the runway 5K at the Seattle Airport, but Wings Over the Rockies is also hosting their own Space Race 5K. It'll be in the Lowry neighborhood. So that is on May 10th. So they're kind of close together, but both groups are actually attending each other's 5K races. Centennials is already sold out, so there's no big worries there. So yeah. And that's my report.
The division team does have a team at the 5K at Centennial, and we'll be out there again this year with our booth, handing out charts and directories and talking to people about what we do.
What's our team name?
The Arrowheads.
Arrowhead.
It was all my idea.
Very good.
Are you on the team, Kev? Yeah. At least I think I am.
Come see us out there. You can still get out there and walk around.
Put it on top dog.
See us.
Next up, thank you so much, Bill, for making.
Well, I'll make this quick. I'll follow y'all's lead on this. The FAA has published an RFP for airports, and in typical FAA fashion, they have screwed this up royally. They have made it so impossible that airports are going to have an almost impossible time to respond to it. They've got a real fast, May 15th is the timeline. But some of the information they're asking airports are not going to be able to respond to this. So Dave has asked for an extension of time of 60 days. The interesting part about this is they will be selecting airports to be the recipient of some they have $37 million in funding. Two of the airports, I believe they've already chosen Bartow. They haven't made that official, but that's what's going to happen. So I believe that it's an opportunity for us, for the division, to go after some of that funding. Now, if the FAA, and I think they should, back off of that date. I've got a conference call with them in the morning to discuss some other stuff, but I wanted to make sure that they're able to make this reasonable because airports aren't going to be able to respond to that. I still am hopeful that the system design approval for the system, for the RTX requester system, will occur in August or September. They're pushing for that. So let's see. I think that's probably about it. It looks promising. Just have to see how that goes. Unfortunately, I had put in. I helped them put some of that stuff together, and they put in some of my suggestions, which I'm looking back on it now. No, that's it.
So just a real fast question. Why just 30 days to respond to an RFP? That seems awful
That seems unusual for the FAA.
I don't know, but I have a sneaking suspicion. And that is that they've already picked, you know, now, having said that, they are really, really hoping to work with Colorado. Okay, we still have an upper hand in this. So anyway.
I will add that the notice of funding opportunities they've been pushing out, the FAA, well, all of DOT, including the FAA, they have all been 30 days, regardless of the purpose. So whether it's small community or service development program, whether it's, you know, the discretionary terminal funding from IIJA, every single one is 30 days. So I think that's where the 30 days comes from. And they also give you no warning it's coming out.
Yeah.
It just drops. So.
And that's how this one was, Madam Chair. It just came out yesterday. I have actually not had a chance to thoroughly read it and digest it in the run up to today's meeting, but we're going to do that. The timing was fortuitous. We have a monthly digital tower working group meeting with the airports that are interested in Colorado. That happened today. So the other thing we did is we encouraged all of them to also ask for an extension so that there's maybe some critical mass. It's not just one person asking for it. The other problematic piece was they're asking for a lot of very detailed and very specific information. And the page limit was 5, including a cover letter.
The form
way you can provide everything they want. Look, I've run a ton of RFPs in my days. I like a short response better than anybody, but 5 is not enough to articulate what they want. So we said you need to rethink your page count too. There's no way we could do it. So we're going to be on it. I'm going to work with Bill. We're going to submit a proposal. We're going to submit it with cooperation with some of those airports, and I'll report out on that once we get a chance to dive into that later tomorrow. So
a couple things. Can you, just for us, there's high interest here, obviously from work. Can you share what that RFP looks like?
I'll pass along to you. You bet. Yeah, I'll send.
And then, so I started my career as a warranty contracting officer for the feds. The secret word is limiting competition. That's what, you know, the unintended consequence of having us do this in 30 days is you're eliminating competition.
Yeah.
Just period in a sentence, and that's going to extend things. So
I will share the link. I was happy to share a link with you.
Exactly what I believe is happening. And the other thing is
which is unlawful, by the way.
Well,
yes.
It's the whole thing is very poorly written. They aren't playing on what the funding will be available. I've asked this question before, and for example, what exactly are they intended to pay for? They're saying a digital or remote tower system. And my question is, what is it? I mean, because there's a lot more stuff that's in that for airports. I mean, so anyway.
Allowed to know what airports are interested, or is that a trade secret at this point?
Across the country.
No, here.
Oh, no, absolutely. No, that's not secret at all. So we've been having conversations. Obviously, FNL is off the table, as I've talked to you previously. They've decided to pursue a traditional tower, but that group and some, not everybody's on the call, but it consists of Telluride, Gunnison, Hayden, who else am I missing? Durango and Greeley. Yeah. So those
not Montrose.
Not Montrose is not participating in those calls. So, but that said, I think again, without getting too much into detail, what Bill and I have talked about is those individual airports don't really have the level of activity and the level of complexity to really stand on their own as a one-off airport, maybe Durango. But collectively, if we do that digital tower center where we have one central facility, then all of a sudden it does make sense to have those smaller airports. We were surprised Hayden was one of our leading airports. They're on that list too. They only have 14,000 operations a year.
Well, they've got that whole massive setup in there.
Exactly. And the RFP, we don't own and operate an airport. So I have to find an airport that's willing to be a partner with us in the RFP. And we have some, but 30 days, they've got to go back to their governing body. So long story short, we'll see how it goes. And I'm going to talk with Bill about some strategies to maybe move up our request for an extension, higher up the FAA's food chain to some people that we've got great contacts with. Bill.
I think the only federal elected representative in the state on an aviation committee is Congressman Jeff Byrd. I would encourage you to reach out to him.
We are going to do that. And Senator Hickenlooper is on Senate Aviation too. So he's been
he's on Senate Commerce, right?
Yeah. So anyway, we'll work on that. So more to come on that. Thanks.
All right. Next up, legislative updates.
Just a couple of things on the federal level. Last night, the House passed the ALERT Act. You remember the House and Senate had competing versions of legislation on aviation air traffic safety related to the DCA crash. The ALERT Act got passed by the House. It's now off to the Senate. Again, not something we have a direct dog in that fight, but one thing that is attached to that is what's called the Pilot and Aircraft Privacy Act, or PAPA. And it would specifically prohibit airports from using ADS-B technology to assess takeoff or landing fees or to impose any charge on aircraft operators. We don't have a dog in that fight because we don't collect aircraft registration fees or operation fees. But I think that's one that's certainly of interest to our airports in the community. So we've been following that, but that's now off to the Senate, where it looks like it stands a pretty good chance of passing. There's a little bit more support for that one as opposed to rotor, which the House said in February, we don't support that one. It has some problematic provisions into it. So we'll follow that. Interesting stuff there. On the state level, there's really only one bill that we've been tracking from the division's perspective, and it's really exciting. And it's House Bill 1076. It's called Transportation Statutory Cleanup. And it's CDOT runs every year to clean up archaic or outdated parts of statute or to put other things in there. The one thing that is in there that we put in relative to aeronautics is to SIB. You all have the statutory authority to transfer funds from our account into the SIB account, but the way statute is written, the Transportation Commission has to approve the transfer back, and that's the Transportation Commission has no touch point with our SIB anymore. So we're working to clean that up where you also have the ability to move it back, but only the amount originally put in. You cannot take back the interest that stays in the SIB account. So pretty straightforward. That's now out of the House, past the House. It's in Senate. Transportation has not been scheduled for a hearing yet, but really nothing controversial on that. I have no reason to expect that will pass flying colors and pretty routine. So that's really it. And then once that's done, that is the very last touch point that our SIB program on the aviation side has from TC. We worked previously to remove them from a lot of the other aspects of it. So good news for us, making it more efficient for us to get our funding out. And that's it, Madam Chair.
Any questions before we move on? On to the calendar.
All right, calendar. Next meeting is June 11th for CAOA, which runs June 10th to the 12th down at Pueblo. If you're interested, I'll have more info, but on June 9th, for those of you that might be coming the day before, we've been offered a tour of the US DOT's Transportation Technology Center, which is the big railroad research thing out there, out by the airport. As a little kid who loves trains, I've always wanted to get out there and check it out. We're going to have the opportunity to do that. So as we get closer to that meeting, reach out to all of you to see if that's something you're interested in participating in, like we would have to in some tours like we did with NREL. We'll need your driver's license and some of that data because it's a federal facility, but we'll reach out to you if you're interested. They don't really do anything with aviation at the moment, but there is something that they may be doing down the road under contract with DOT on advanced air mobility potentially, and how that interfaces with railroads and that kind of stuff. So kind of cool. I think some of us on staff are going to do it. We'll do that. The nice thing is that is a very light agenda. That is typically not much on that agenda for us. So look forward to a regular meeting there. That's it from the calendar. If you want to look way far ahead into August, our annual CAB staff workshop is set for all day on Tuesday, August 25th, with our regular meeting the next morning on the 6th. Steve is hopefully going to be able to work us out to have that meeting out at the new CIA facility out at Denver, so we can get a tour of that at the same time. So stand by, we'll have more info. It's not ready as of this moment, but hopefully by August it will be, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
It's definitely usable now.
Does that sound good, everybody? Rather than meeting here that next day, going out to Denver and checking out that cool facility. I'm excited about that. We've funding in the round of grant applications for the education program this year. Kind of cool to see what they're doing.
Obviously a big block of time in. So if everyone could look at their schedules and just let Dave know if those dates, if we're going to have a lot of conflicts, make sure.
Yes, please do. That's the dates we picked earlier. So if that happens, I would argue that that workshop on the 25th is probably the most valuable meeting that we have of the year to make sure we're all on the same page on things.
August felt like really far away when we planned this, and I think it's still a little bit far away, but if there are known conflicts with multiple members,
happy to move it.
They want to move it. So I wanted to put that on.
It happen when we need to. And that's it for the calendar, Madam Chair.
Need action,
Oh, why do I need action for that?
because something changed.
Oh, I'm sorry, I do need action on that because we actually set the date. I apologize. Thank you, Todd.
Okay, so we need action for the calendar overall. Is that right?
For the two changes, we had a change for the specific time for the June 11th meeting during CAOA, and then the location change for the August meeting itself, not the workshop, to be at TIA.
Yes, thank you, Katie.
So moved.
Get a little punchy over
Okay.
here.
What is the CAO? What is it? The 11th and 12th or the 9th or the 10th and 11th?
They've got their welcome reception Wednesday evening, the 10th, and then the conference itself is the 11th and the morning of the 12th.
They do a golf tournament that Wednesday.
As well, yeah.
Basically after the golf tournament starts.
Team Arrowhead gonna be at that?
Thank you.
Team Arrowhead gonna be at that?
The reception or golf?
Golf tournament.
You will be doing the VCI.
We'll be on the job.
Join us.
I
don't want to.
Calendar changes have been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Chair votes and approval as well. Are there any other matters? Board members today?
I will be very quick. And this may be something for August, so I don't want to belabor the point now, but just given the scope of the public comment that we received today about some of the safety and noise stuff and everything else, nothing to do with this airport in particular, but I would love to, within the bounds of what is the division's responsibility and what is the airport's responsibility, and also given that we have seemingly lost our CDHPE seat, I would just love to discuss with the board and with division what, if anything, our responsibilities or opportunities are to engage with airport operators in the community for the purpose of safety and noise and all of the things, some of which is new from HB 24-1235 and whatever, just for discussion at a later date. That is it.
And I just want to clarify, the CDPHE position has not been foregone.
No, I know,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Oh, no, no, they had responsibilities in the bill, which is the point of discussing,
still
they're
there,
not
they
here,
just gotta get-
but they also had responsibilities that would be part of the greater conversation.
It's like, from what I understand, CDPHE, because they have a lot of federal funding that's being eliminated, they're going through some significant reductions and changes in staff, is what I understand, and that has something to do with why they. Yeah, and, Director Liu is on it with her counterpart at CDPHE.
I have heard that they are sending out the next round of postcards. Whether or not those make it to areas around airports, I do not know, but the next round of postcards is supposedly going out. So that's the extent that I have there.
In other matters, I just want to thank the rest of the board for a healthy dialogue. I recognize that that was awkward, and when as many people from the community are making comments, I think it's very important for us to have an informed dialogue. And I'm pleased with the progression of conversation. So I each and every one of you individually for your support.
And I hope what you heard from all of us, we didn't dismiss those, I think just the opposite, that we all read them.
Yep.
Or most of us, I mean, you heard many of us read them. And so we were not dismissive of them. But we operated within the confines of our responsibility and statute.
Any other discussion? Thank you everyone for your time and being prepared. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, I said I'll take a motion.
No.
Mark just.
I'm anxious.
Any other discussion? Okay, on approval, signal by saying bye. Bye. Same time.
Thank you.